Hello everyone. Today, a very interesting story awaits you. And before it starts, I would like to ask you to like this video and subscribe to the channel. The events unfold in Seoul, in the district of Predators. A group of young people gathered in an abandoned building. They were waiting for their victim in a dark corner. One of the young men noticed that someone was approaching them. He quickly warned his brothers about this. Hooligans hoped that it was easy prey with a fat wallet. The boys turned into beasts and prepared to attack. Full of enthusiasm, they prematurely underestimated their future opponent. The approaching young man seemed to them to be weak and grumpy, but the plan failed. As the passerby approached, one of the group realized that it was a higher-ranking predator. In a moment, the robbers were already running away from their ambush. Meanwhile, the young man, without suspecting anything, was walking down the street and enjoying the beautiful sunny weather. One of the hooligans, in the form of a rat, looked angrily after the passerby and grumbled to himself, "Why should higher predators wander in such wilderness?" Then the rodent complained to his friends that the higher animals had recently taken 50,000 won from him. True, he was also not against choosing them, but he could not because of fear. Another member of the gang, a dog, began to recall his fights with superiors, which always ended in humiliation. He then covered his sick eye to escape from the sophomores. The largest school of bandits in Korea is the name given to the institution of 3 generations of predators: a lion, a bear, and a tiger. Very troubled students gathered here, who often had problems with the law in the past. The authority of the school has grown to incredible heights. And the blue tie, a symbol of the educational institution, became associated with trouble. Even the adults avoided the students. Such class injustice only angered the street thieves. Since the apex predator was alone, the gang decided to try to attack. The desire to get money took over. The stranger did not immediately understand what was happening. Seeing the young men in front of him, he only asked what they were doing. This behavior puzzled the attackers. They even wondered if he was really taller. But the 4 thieves set up an easy fight. They threw him a few superficial phrases and started what they planned. Saying that the boy owed them money, a kangaroo armed with a wooden stick was the first to attack. But the first attack failed. The guy quickly got his bearings and hit the brave attacker with incredible force. The kangaroo flew away several meters. His teammates stood as if in shock. Fear, surprise, and shock made them completely numb. Only now did they see the full picture. The woe thieves looked closely and noticed that their opponent had the golden eyes of a tiger. 3 hooligans were talking among themselves. They agreed that there was only one way to fight the tiger. They were already ready to use it. While the boy tried to explain that he had hit one of the boys by accident, the rest of the gang ran as hard as they could in different directions. The thieves were in such a hurry to get away that they forgot about their friend, who was left lying on the asphalt. Throwing the unconscious attacker on his shoulders, our hero carried him to a safe place, making fun of the fugitives. The guy put the defeated opponent down so that he would calmly come to his senses. He realized that the fame of the top predators still preceded them. This year promised to be interesting, so our hero will have a lot of work ahead of him. And a year ago, an annual event for new students took place in the High School of Predators, the division into ranks. 2 months have passed since then. In the weakest first group of the first year, Kang Yu-jong was in last place. He did not belong to any pack, although he had the gene to transform into a tiger. Peers who had higher ranks did not miss any opportunity to insult, beat the young man and humiliate him, calling him a kitten. Park De-sol did not miss any such opportunity. The boy was a member of the Park Yohan pack and had the gene to turn into a leopard. He took incredible pleasure in showing off his strength. Leopard even asked if our hero sometimes painted his eyes gold. After all, Yu-jong didn't look like a tiger. One of the conflicts between the young men ended with De-sol wanting to paint our young man's eyes with a felt-tip pen and see if they would change color. Of course, Kang began to protest. Such behavior angered the offender. He, not restraining his emotions, hit our main character. The latter simply fell to the floor. Leopard put his foot on the young man's head, punishing him for expressing objection. Such behavior only spoiled his mood. But he did not abandon the idea of painting a weak classmate with a felt-tip pen. Our hero was lying on the classroom floor with his face painted. The young man's nose was broken. Blood was oozing from it. When the boy went to the restroom to clean himself up, he was stopped by another classmate. It was Josue, a rank 11 freshman with a wild boar gene. He was the leader of his pack. The boy mockingly apologized for tearing Yujong away. The guy wanted to take money for lunch from our young man. He wanted to get 50,000 won easily. But our hero had only 10,000. So the moment he handed over his pocket money, one of Josue's sixes ran up and hit Kang hard. He was outraged by such a small amount. It was Ma Quan, a member of Josue's group. The guy had rank 13 and the horse gene. Pretending to care for our hero, Josue helped him up. He scolded his friend for his aggressive reaction, then told Yujong that since he understood everything, he would find them the missing amount. Our hero was in the dressing room and tried to wash his face by the mirror. He was filled with anger and despair. Being the weakest, moreover, a tiger, he could not resist the offenders. Back in the fall, when our hero was in high school, one of the teachers talked to his father. The teacher said that unfortunately there is nothing he can do because Kang is a special predator. Then the father explained that his son is too kind and does not know how to transform into a predator. However, at the age of 7, he turned into a tiger. This was evidenced by the records. Even one transformation in 10 years was enough. Any one of the 3 main beast archetypes under these conditions should have gone to predator school. Therefore, even without the ability to transform, our main character was accepted into the school. Not least, the fact that he was one of the 3 main predators played a role in this. Yujong, who could not reincarnate, felt as if he had received a death sentence. From the first day in high school, our main character tried to do everything to be transferred to study in another place. However, it is useless. At first, at the beginning of the semester, no one touched the boy. This was due to the golden eyes that were the symbol of the tiger. But it lasted only 40 minutes. Then the class teacher came and asked the students to help Kang Yujong because he cannot reincarnate. It was at that moment that our main character fell to the very bottom of the food chain. The guy was standing in front of the mirror in the dressing room, washing himself and thinking about what predators are unbearable. He even began to regret being born a tiger. But then he realized that it was not him at all. Yujong tried to understand why classmates wanted to bully other people so much. Do they really like it? The windows in the room suddenly crumbled into many fragments. Through them, 3 young men flew into the dressing room. Our main character hid behind the shells and watched what was happening, full of horror. All opponents were transformed into beasts. The young man watched as 2 hyenas attacked a hedgehog. They shouted all the time and threatened him with violence. In a few moments, the 2 were beating the boy, who was already in human form. They warned him that he had better continue working for them. Then the hyenas raved about their time in high school. Returning to the classroom after what he saw, Yujong tried to reassure himself that it was just school. But then he again began to regret that he was born a tiger and ended up here. His thoughts were interrupted by a classmate. He shouted that our hero wiped his creation from the board. And then the punishment was a powerful blow to the stomach, which came unexpectedly to our young man. Krivnik enjoyed his advantage. He was going to explain to Kang how the ranks worked. But suddenly, someone called out to him. Zhonghua, a classmate who stood up for Yujong, said he was the class teacher of the next group, and he said to wipe the board. After that, the brave man had no more questions. Zhonghua was one of the strongest freshmen with the wolf gene, but he did not belong to any pack. This affected his low rating, but the boy did not care, since recently this guy has been protecting our hero. However, Kang didn't know why that was. But Yujong sincerely considered his classmate cool and took him as an example. He dreamed that one day he too could become strong. The physical education lesson unleashed the animal instincts of the students. Fights broke out everywhere. Predators measured their strength. Our young man was awkwardly sitting on the steps of the stadium when 2 classmates approached him. They gave him money and sent him to buy them something to drink. Yujong realized that he was holding in his hands the same money that Josue had taken from him in the morning. But he could not do anything about it. Meanwhile, around the corner, 2 students were smoking and discussing Zhonghua. One of them is a student who was humiliated in class by a lone wolf, Park Dasol. The other is a leader, Park Johan. The boy had a low rating among freshmen, but no one touched him. It drove the student crazy, and their headman ignored this recluse. The flow of thoughts about revenge was interrupted by our hero. Seeing the young man, the student asked where Yujong had gone. In response, I heard that the boy was going to buy water for Josue, but it didn't matter. The young man, bent on conflict, threw all his emotions at our hero. He leaned over Kang, who was moaning in pain, and began to tell him about the rank confusion in their group. Because of this, he was not taken seriously. Remembering how Ujong stopped him from having fun, Park De-sol decided to make up for what he had lost and started beating Yujong. Josu and Kwan were suffering from thirst. They were waiting for our hero to return. But suddenly, they saw their messenger being beaten around the corner. The boys approached the scene of the fight and intervened. They reminded that they had sent the boy for water. Kwan blurted out that the lower-ranked students were all cocky. This greatly affected the other two and became the beginning of the conflict. De-sol proposed to determine in a fight which rank holders have an advantage, regardless of the distribution at the beginning of the semester. Josue mentally appreciated De-sol's attempt to sound cool. He knew it was because of being in Johan's group. At this time, his opponent began to give an ultimatum to the guests. Either attack or leave here. Those words threw Kwan off balance. The guy shouted that listening only to Johan, the opponent can pay. However, Josue stopped him, trying to calm him down. Johan had rank 15 and the rhinoceros gene. He no longer liked that one of the uninvited guests was talking a lot. Josue had no desire to fight, but the challenge was thrown, so he had to react somehow. And he had an idea. The guy said that he is not hungry now, there is no point in fighting. However, he offered to test his strength on the boxing pair. Gang members decided to have a fight. Whoever can knock out our hero first will be considered the winner. And no matter how much Yujong mentally asked them to fight each other, everyone liked the idea of beating the weaker one. The memories of our main character about the winter when he was 7 years old are special. They resemble a dull canvas with red spots. His memory showed him only a little tiger boy with bloody hands. The noise of alarmed people could be heard all around. Then everything turned red. The figures around became indistinct. Memories seemed to have been cut out of memory. But the young man did not want to mention it. Our hero was depressed only by the fact that he could not even remember his mother's last words. It was from that time that he no longer transformed into a beast. Yujong lay on the asphalt, weakly taking beatings from his classmates. He was barely breathing. His nose was broken and bloody. Meanwhile, his abusers merrily discussed their venture. Kwan was unhappy that the last to hit would have a head start if the boys took turns hitting. And he, with the gene of a horse, couldn't kick. De-sol only laughed and noted that when they were setting the rules, the young man was silent. But now he came to his senses. Kang assessed his situation. He understood that these hooligans were going to make him lose consciousness, and the prize for the winner was food from the store. Members of the two groups beat our hero, enjoying their superiority. They mockingly called him a kitten, and in this way wanted to teach endurance. Blow after blow, the boy endured 14 of them. Another kick threw him several meters. Yujong lay there and understood that he might die. It occurred to him that it would be better to pretend that he had passed out. But this was not the first attempt. Once he had already tried to avoid the massacre. But everything failed. The young man was quickly exposed, and it got even worse. De-sol was enjoying what was happening. He laughed and said that just a few minutes ago he was very angry with Ujong, but now he feels greatly relieved. Meanwhile, Josue turned to new acquaintances. The young man said that they seemed like normal guys, and then suggested that they try to merge their groups. Kwan liked the idea. He assumed that after unification, they would be able to take second place in their group. Josue smugly added that when they could add at least a few more people, they would be the main group in the first group. And this will allow even not the strongest students with low ranks to rise higher in the rating. Park Johan paid tribute to the idea of unification. It seemed to him an interesting prospect. However, the boy was worried about who would be the leader then. Josu already had an idea. The guy offered to solve everything on our hero. The contenders for the place of leader still had one strike each. This meant that the one who knocks out Yujong will be the winner and get the place of the leader of the United Pack. All this caused despair and hopelessness in the boy. He no longer had the strength and only thought how much longer he had to endure this. Josue transformed into a boar to deliver the final blow. To all objections, he noted that the rules did not forbid it. Then it became clear that these guys were hopeless and nothing would change them. The boar's attack was powerful. Our young man flew a few meters above the ground and thoughts swirled in his head why he, born of a tiger, should endure such abuse. Quan approached our hero and was surprised that he was still conscious. Yu Zhong, through the dizziness, wondered how it was possible to transform and immediately attack a person with all his might in his right mind. The next contender for the leader has also already transformed into a rhinoceros. Johann struck with all his might. Our hero only dreamed of getting a chance to change this reality in which he has to exist. Kang wanted to transform to fight back against the abusers. Meanwhile, Dussel was sure that after the beatings of the rhinoceros, the boy would definitely faint. However, this did not happen, which quite surprised the hooligans. In his imagination, our main character turned into a tiger and good-naturedly mauled all 4 attackers, teaching them the language they understood best. And in reality, 4 classmates bent over him, who only recently spanked him. They checked to see if the boy was still alive and marveled with amusement at his endurance after so many blows. Then the boys simply left him lying on the asphalt near the bushes, and they themselves, hungry, went to the store. Yu Zhong didn't have the strength to get up at all, and after a few minutes, he shut down. Zhonghua was in the locker room when he overheard a conversation between 4 classmates discussing beating up our main character. The boys were happy about the wonderful way to relieve stress, and they marveled at Kang's incredible stamina. The young men pondered how their victim would get to the audience. Then they laughed that in his place they would have left the school a long time ago and regretted not beating them even harder. After hearing that, Zhonghua quickly left the room to find the offended classmate. Soon he saw that the boy was lying unconscious near the fence. All this made him angry. When the young man returned to the audience, his t-shirt was dirty on the back. He got dirty when he was carrying his friend. Bloodstains were red on his clothes. The boy approached the zombies and thundered loudly so that they would transform, because he would beat them in human form as well. While his opponents were trying to figure out what was going on, Zhonghua kicked Quan. Then he shouted once more for them to reincarnate. In a moment, the boy was already surrounded by leopard, boar, and rhinoceros. They were angry, caught off guard, and ready to fight. Dussel was the first to pounce on the defiant classmate. Turning on the leopard, he charged swiftly, shouting that he had wanted to deal with Zhonghua for a long time. But in response, he received a strong blow from the wolf, into which quickly transformed. The boy hit his opponent with the words that what annoys him the most is that he puts too much of himself. Meanwhile, Quan came too. He quickly turned on his horse and rushed headlong to help his friends in the fight. The boy gave several kicks with his hooves, taunting the wolf for vainly thinking he could defeat the 4 of them. But this only added fuel to the fire. Zhonghua began to fight with even more excitement. He precisely attacked the horse, taking him by the scruff of the neck. In a moment, the opponent was already lying on the floor, and the wolf shouted that he did not like him because he was pretending to be strong. Seeing how quickly Quan's friend was defeated, Zhou charged at He was quite strong in the form of a boar, so the wolf had a hard time. However, in a moment, he hit his opponent in the head. This threw Caban off balance and gave him a head start. Zhonghua accompanied the next blows by saying that he doesn't like Zhou because he looks like a freak. Of course, this phrase offended and angered the opponent. Boar's eyes were bloodshot and he hit back hard. At that moment, Johann approached from behind to strike from behind. The rhino gathered himself and already raised his hands up to show all his strength to the daredevil. But he only hit the air. The wolf quickly and deftly dodged and jumped back, leaving the opponent with nothing. And while the surprised Park Johann was looking for the guy with his eyes, Zhonghua gave him a good slap, shouting that he doesn't like him because he pretends to be cool. Everything that happened in the classroom was very much liked by the crowd. The students supported as they watched him deal with the aggressive foursome. The abusers of our main character gathered together and caught their breath, somewhat confused by the situation that had developed with them. Zhonghua stood calmly and examined the opponents, then in a steely voice without a drop of excitement, he said that he does not like them because they are the ceiling. This phrase became a catalyst for a new wave of aggression. Rivals pounced on the wolf, destroying everything in its path. They wanted to teach this guy. Yu Jong heard as if he was being called like when he was a child. This feeling caused a smile and a pleasant feeling of security. Then he came to his senses. The boy sat on the bed in the room and called his mother. The feeling of her presence was so real. The door opened and Yu Jonghwa entered the room. He checked to see if his friend had woken up and inquired about the young man's well-being. The boy sat down by the bed and joked that Yu Jong better not look in the mirror yet. Kang thanked his friend for bringing him here to safety. Jonghwa awkwardly began to say that he had wanted to talk to our main character for a long time, but it seems he was a little late. And his acts of kindness would not have surprised the boy so much. Yu Jong assured that everything was fine, and noticing that his friend's face was bruised, he asked what had happened to him. To this, Yu replied that in fact nothing terrible had happened. He just chatted with Josue and Johan. At the same time, without specifying that his rivals are now in a much worse condition. These words quite surprised our hero. This meant that for the first time, someone stood up for him and took revenge on the wrongdoers. The girls in the class sat over the unconscious boys. They laughed and wondered how the always quiet and calm Yu Jonghwa had defeated such strong opponents. And in the head of our hero, many thoughts were spinning. Why is this guy helping him? What does he want in return? Maybe money for working as a security guard? But in order not to think in vain, Yu Jong simply asked his friend why he was so caring and kind to him. Expecting to hear some selfish motives, our hero awkwardly added that he could not give the young man anything in return. But Jonghwa said that it wouldn't be interesting to just tell everything. He asked the boy to listen to his request first. The young man said that he has been worried about one problem for a long time, which makes no sense to postpone. He had ranked 20 in the first group and didn't belong to any pack. But the boy was a public figure and had S-class combat power. He offered our main character to create a pack together and become the leader of the first group. And Yu Jonghwa's request that he mentioned earlier was that Yu Jong should join his pack first. Josue nervously smoked a cigarette. He reiterated that the confusion in the battle for ranks in the first group happened because of Yu Jonghwa. Besides, the four of them cannot fight because of him. On reflection, the boy said they should team up with Jo Sang-ho's gang. He couldn't be in the same place with Jonghwa anymore. Then I asked my friends what they thought about it. Everyone accepted such a proposal without much enthusiasm. They just poured out and smoked cigarettes. Since they did not find another way to solve their problem, they got together and went to Jo Sang-ho's pack. The leader raised his head, surveying the guests. He was a student of the first rank. He had the kangaroo transformation gene. Yu Jong walked down the school corridor, completely lost in his thoughts. The traces of recent beatings were still visible on his face. He remembered a conversation with a friend. He was surprised to hear that wanted to lead the group. Our hero thought that the young man was not interested in this. Jonghwa agreed. He didn't really care. But in this school it was impossible to survive as a hermit. Until recently, all fights ended in semi-death. But soon it will reach the limit, and being alone at school is dangerous. Regarding the position of the head of the first group, the boy explained, "If you are the leader in the weakest class, then there is no point in fighting for rank within the class. There is no point in fighting for rank in a weak group if you are its leader." Our main character could not understand how he, a boy who does not know how to transform, could help. Therefore, Kang once again reminded his friend that he was a weakling who could not give anything. However, Jonghwa objected. He did not consider his friend a weakling and noted that he had the eyes of a brave man. The last phrase stuck in Yu Jong's memory. The boy walked down the corridor and repeated it in his head, trying to understand what his friend meant. The young man's voice returned from his pensive state. The guy thundered that it was necessary to clean up, and our young man had to do it. While carrying the chairs, Kang remembered the conversation with Yu Jonghwa. He was going to recruit 4 more classmates he had noticed into his pack. They were also quite independent, and his friend wanted to implement everything together. But doubts prevailed. Yu Jong didn't want to be a burden, so he refused. Was upset. He went down the stairs, thinking that he should have started his business earlier. But now he was worried. If others join the pack first, Kang may not want to. But his disturbing thoughts were interrupted by Jo Sang-ho, who blocked his way with several members of his group. Zdorovan took Jonghwa by the shoulders. The young man threatened that the lone wolf had better keep calm. It became known about his attempts to overturn established ranks, and they didn't like it. Didn't understand Sangho's claim on him. After all, he did not touch the members of his pack. However, this turned out not to be the case. After all, Dasol, Johan, Makwan, and Josue were now in his pack. The leader noted that there are now 10 people in his pack, and it's all thanks to Zhonghua. Sangho advised him to leave school, otherwise he would have to run into their fists until graduation. But it was not possible to intimidate Vovka. He transformed and threatened to spank his opponent, as he had done recently, if he did not survive his hands. It only caused laughter. Everyone began to make fun of the fact that Zhonghua used to be quiet and calm, but now he has become a real crazy wolf of high school. At this time, Kangaroo was preparing to strike the boy. However, the plan did not work out. The wolf quickly found his way and struck ahead. The fist aimed directly at the attacker's head. This angered Zhou Sangho. Smiling nervously, he ordered his men to attack the young man. Stood motionless as the crowd rushed at him. The boy bravely faced his opponents on his own, as long as he had the strength. A teacher entered the classroom. After looking around the class, he asked where some of the students were because there were many free seats. However, he did not hear the answer. Our main character noticed that Park Johan, Josu, and the Zhou Sangho gang were missing. He assumed that now they had caused his friend a lot of trouble. His first thought was that all this was happening to the young man because of him. But then he rejected her. Yuzhong remembered the conversation with his words about the eyes of a brave man, about wanting our young man to join his pack first. Kang told himself that Zhonghua is the only one who treats him like a human being. And the realization that this guy is being beaten now did not give our main character peace. He decided that there was nothing more to lose. So he will go to help his friend, despite the fact that he too will be beaten. Having forced himself to gather courage, the young man raised his hand and asked the teacher for permission to go to the toilet. After receiving permission, Yuzhong rushed to run quickly through the corridors of the school, trying to find a friend as quickly as possible. Soon, he heard the noise of a fight. The boy looked into one of the far corridors and saw Zhonghua fighting a group of rivals. He fought back well, but there were too many opponents. Blows poured in from all sides. The boy was pressed against the wall. However, the wolf was able to deliver a powerful blow to the leader. He kicked the kangaroo several meters back. Our hero watched this and admired the resilience and courage of his friend. But he reminded himself that he had come to help, so I had to come up with something. Yuzhong was terrified of having to intervene in a fight where everyone present had transformed. But still, he pulled himself together, pinched his face several times, and assured himself that he would do everything in order to dispel his fear. Gathering his wits, he jumped out of his hiding place and charged at Leopard from behind. Our hero hit him in the back, successfully using the surprise effect. Of course, this did not stop the opponent. He immediately hit back, surprised to see Kang here. In a few minutes, our young man was already lying on the floor, holding his stomach, which hurt from the blows. Leopard stood over him, mocking and trying to understand what kind of thoughtless act it was. When the beast was about to go to his friends, then beat our hero clung to his legs. He was determined to detain at least one enemy. This move worked. Park Dasol fell to the floor, and Yuzhong climbed on top of him and started beating him, repeating to himself that he should at least divert this from his friend. But the triumph did not last long. In a moment, Leopard had thrown the young man off him without much effort. Dasol stood over our boy. He mockingly called him a kitten. However, he admitted that such behavior did cause surprise. And while Leopard was messing with Yuzhong, Zhonghua managed to defeat all the opponents who were now lying on the floor. And finally, he came to the last one. A few seconds later, Park Dasol was hit in the head by a strong blow from Vovk, which sent him flying a few meters away. Transformed back into human form and exhaled tiredly. He managed to deal with all the attackers on his own. Kang looked around the corridor, the floor of which was lined with students lying unconscious, and said that his friend was indeed a monster. Zhonghua walked up to our hero and put his hand on his shoulder. He cheerfully said that the young man was really telling the truth, that there was little help from him in the fight. They laugh about it together. Yuzhong said that for the sake of the only person in the whole school who treated him well, He came to be a punching bag. But seeing how his friend was fighting, he became a little bolder. Patted his friend on the shoulder and told him he didn't need to be a punching bag because they were from the same pack. And then he once again asked to think about his proposal. This time, Kang didn't refuse. Inspired by what he had experienced, he shook hands with his friend as a sign of agreement. A student of the school hurriedly ran to the playground around the corner of the buildings, shouting Sunghua's name. He saw a dozen people on the asphalt and 2 girls above them. He asked, confused, if they had dealt with everything just the 2 of them. In response, he heard that it was only Sunghua's work. The young man began to tell that today Zhonghua single-handedly defeated 10 people from the first group. Now they wondered if the wolf would go into action like Songhua had predicted. The girl only smiled mysteriously. In the not-too-distant future, one student received a notification. After reading, he turned to his friend who was resting. The message said that Zhonghua from the first group is at the center of a big storm called Predator High School. 3 strangers, leaving several dozen people unconscious on the asphalt, set out on a new mission. Outside the school building, the recently beaten members of the Zhou Sang-ho gang were licking their wounds. And their leader was displacing his anger by beating everything around with a wooden stick. Suddenly, the Ions heard someone calling their pack leader. Everyone turned to see who had come to them. Smiling, Songhua approached the group. She mockingly remarked that she heard how Zhonghua dealt with them by himself, and she added that they looked too happy after such a thing. Those present looked at each other. It was a surprise to see this guest. Zhou Sang-ho angrily asked why she came here. Zhang Songhua had rank 1 in the first group and the hyena transformation gene. The girl, smiling, announced that she wanted to talk. Yuzhong and walked down the street and talked about their next steps. Zhonghua planned to win Dong Hyeon and Solwa's pack over to his side. If it succeeds and they agree, then our boys believed that the path to leadership in the first group would be easy. The problem was that the representatives of these groups have too much pride. They are not at all those who will obey someone. Our main character volunteered to help with this. Being the weakest in the group, he analyzed the students so as not to fall into their hands. In general, he knew what everyone liked, and this could be used to achieve the set goal. Agreed that something might come of it. The boys decided that they needed to take their time, recover from the fight, get a good night's sleep, and heal their wounds. The guys said goodbye, saying to each other, "See you tomorrow," and went their separate ways. Our hero walked and scrolled past events in his head. He did not even expect that the day would come when he would say, "See you tomorrow," to someone. Suddenly, the boy heard strange noises around the corner. Something was happening behind the building, and Yuzhong was interested in it. Looking around the room, the young man saw a girl standing a few tens of meters away in front of the red-haired boy. And after a few seconds, they rushed at each other, attacking and deflecting each other's blows. At the same time, the guy looked quite cheerful. The girl not only looked strong, she fought beautifully. One of the blows knocked her opponent off his feet. For our main character, what he saw turned out to be a pleasant surprise. He stood with his mouth open, not fully understanding what was happening. The redhead stood up, smiling, and in a moment, he turned into a tiger. He turned to his opponent, saying that she should do it. This was not what Yuzhong expected to see. He opened his mouth even more, and a light of fear appeared in his eyes. What could not be said about the girl? At first she thought, then a slight smile appeared on her face. But Kang decided he had to step in and help her. He ran around the corner, shouting loudly to stop. The girl was preparing for a fight, but the screams of our boy pulled her away. And very untimely, because the tiger has already started the attack. After uttering a few swear words, she transformed into an elephant. Now her blows became even more powerful. Defeating the beast cost her only one swing of the hand. A few seconds and the predator was already unconscious in human form. The girl turned to our hero, who stood as if stunned by what he saw. She threw the redhead right at Yuzhong. The stranger's body knocked the boy off his feet, knocking him to the ground and crushing him with his weight. The girl also came up, already transformed into a person, and indignantly stated that she had to turn around because of our hero. She flavored it all with a delicious insult and left. And our boy remained lying on the ground, admiring the clear sky and holding the stranger. Meanwhile, Zhonghua was shot by members of Sangho's pack along with the ringleader. The young man met them calmly, only throwing out a few phrases about the fact that they had come to get on his nerves again. In response, I heard a few cliched phrases about how he was getting on my nerves here, and objections about his excessive nervousness compared to the past. Zhonghua calmly addressed Sungho, saying that he was wrong to think of himself as the head of the first group. The young man added that the students do not respect Zhou because they know that he only pretends to be strong and cool. And he does shameful things behind his back because he is actually a coward. And while was saying this directly to Sangho's eyes, Sangho was taking out knuckle dusters from his back pocket. These words angered the young man. He began transforming into a kangaroo, shouting that Zhonghua had no right to read the notation to him. Together with him, other members of the pack were transformed. Their goal was obvious: to get rid of Zhou Sangho decided to put the boy in the hospital. The leader ordered his men to attack. 3 warlike cats rushed into battle first. But the wolf knew how to deal with them. After a few successful hits, they usually stop attacking. Borsuk started to attack next. However, our hero knew that this opponent had to be cut down before he went mad. But the kangaroo with the knuckle on his fingers significantly increased his impact power. Each new one felt 3 times stronger. But as soon as the wolf was about to end it, the badger rushed at him and knocked him to the ground. Sangho ordered to hold the boy, and he himself jumped up and, gathering all his strength upon landing, put it into a blow with his fist. A part of the pack standing aside had already decided that their leader had won. They began to whisper to each other, "But it's too early." In a moment, Zhonghua, with a broken nose, threw the badger off him and rose to his feet. Approaching Sangho, he warned him that he shouldn't make the last scum of himself and remove the crown if she's so pressing. Next, with a powerful punch to the head, the wolf knocked out his opponent, sending him to rest unconscious. The boy then turned to the other members of the Sangho pack, who were standing there in shock watching what happened. He invited them to continue, but they all refused. But Songhua suddenly appeared in front of She mocked him, calling him a terrible wolf who was about to disappear. The girl came even closer, saying that she was seeing him for the first time since the induction ceremony, and offered to get to know each other, giving her name. And then, transforming into a hyena, she reminded Sangho of his words that he would have to spend several months in the hospital, at the same time smiling slyly. Zhonghua gathered his strength and picked up his phone, which was battered like everything around it from the ground. The boy wanted to inform his friend that he had been severely beaten. But even for this, he did not have enough strength and he lost consciousness. Yuzhong was walking down the school corridor and running through his mind the situation he witnessed yesterday. The boy tried to understand who these people were, because for the first time he had seen them fight so fiercely without transforming. The tiger seemed to be his age, but he had not seen this boy before at his school. So he assumed that maybe he was a high school student. The elephant is a herbivore, and since the girl was in a school uniform, she most likely studied at a school for herbivores. But usually, those students are quite restrained and modest. Yuzhong had already entered the classroom, but continued to think about how the elephant was able to knock out the tiger with one punch and why they were fighting in the first place. Looking around, the boy noticed that his friend was late. This was starting to worry him. Our protagonist was approached by one of his classmates and asked if he and Zhonghua were really gathering their own pack. Hearing an affirmative answer, the young man was surprised and asked why I was doing this with Kang, since the latter can't even transform. Our boy had no answer to this. A classmate asked to convey to Zhonghua that his pack of 2 would like to join. If he agrees, then together the ions will easily become the head of the first group. The guy tried to explain that nothing depends on him, but no one wanted to listen to it. The classmate once again asked to convey his request. 2 more girls then approached Yuzhong, annoyed by Sungho's constant staring. They asked to include them in their pack too. At that moment, Zhou Sangho walked into the classroom. The traces of yesterday's fight were still clearly visible on his face. As he walked, the students whispered to each other. They were surprised that the boy did come to school, because they thought that they would not see him for a long time. Others said that he should take off the leader's bracelet. All this created incredible moral pressure on the young man. He couldn't stand it and started smashing the furniture around. He angrily looked around at his classmates, saying that he could hear everything. Now his wish was to teach them all well. Zhou Sangho then turned to our main character and ordered him to come to him. beckoning with his hand. This request caught Yu-jong off guard. He did not understand why, but he got up from his seat and went to his classmate. He didn't even have time to walk a few meters when he was kicked in the back by one of the members of the Sangho pack. She did not like the speed of the young man's movement. Standing up, Kang stood in front of Joe. He smiled smugly and then struck the young man in the side. He said that he had not touched the boy before out of pity, and the recent actions of our hero were regarded as a conspiracy behind his back. That's why he gave the guy a good beating. Sangho then ordered his men to continue beating Yu-jong while saying that Woo Jong-hwa's pack was a ridiculous idea. If they did not do this, then everyone would live peacefully. And then Joe turned to all his classmates. He cryptically asked if they knew why their new leader hadn't come to school. The boy said that Wolf won't be back at school for a long time because he had a good fight with Sangho yesterday. Self-control had already left the young man. He started shouting that he was ready to forget everything that happened before as his classmates watched his conflict with Woo Jong-hwa. But they all have to join his pack. Sangho took our young man by the hair and lifted him up. So he clearly demonstrated what will happen to those who refuse to join his group. Unable to move properly due to the hand holding his head, Yu-jong asked what happened to his friend. Joe let him go and said that if it was so interesting, it was better to ask in person. And after that, he punched the boy directly in the head. Our hero opened his eyes. He began to regain consciousness and realized that he was in the school restroom. The guy went out into the corridor, rubbing the bruised parts of his body. Thoughts were swirling in his head that he had started all this for nothing with Johan Josue, and now also Sangho. In complete desperation, he tried to understand what Jong-hwa expected from him. After all, he is still that loser who can't even transform. Yu-jong mused that he never found out if everything was okay with his friend because he couldn't get in touch. He took out the phone and tried to dial it again, but the caller's device was turned off. At that moment, Sung-hwa approached our boy, giving him a good scare. She asked if he was calling, With an inappropriate smile, she informed that the boy was taken to the hospital yesterday, and it was she who called him an ambulance. Yu-jong noticed his body's strange reaction to Sung-hwa. He began to shake, but he didn't want to show it. Meanwhile, the girl asked if they were friends with Jong-hwa. The young man confirmed that they were friends and asked for information to which hospital the boy was taken. Our hero did not manage to hide his fear. The girl approached him, put her hands on his shoulders, and mockingly assured him that he should not be afraid. She had not done anything to him yet. And then she said that the boy was taken to Rudolph Hospital, and mockingly added that Yu-jong wouldn't mind getting treated there either. The girl turned and walked away. Finally, she shouted that our young man would send her greetings when he went to visit a friend. And then she once again turned to our young man to call him by name. This puzzled the boy, because he could not understand that the girl knew him. Sung-hwa, with a calm expression on her face, warned the boy that if he interfered again, it would be the end of both of them. Jo Sang-ho was enjoying the moment while sitting on a chair. The boy laughed loudly, exclaiming how good life is for him when Woo Jong-hwa is not in front of his eyes. He could still clearly see the judgmental look the boy gave him and his men. And this audacity was quite unsettling. But the girl from his pack remarked that when the others find out about Sung-hwa's help, they won't want to join the pack. And then she asked what the leader was going to do about this problem, since Woo Jong-hwa will be in the hospital for at least a month. Sang-ho planned to take over the third class during this time. He believed that then his classmates would have no choice but to join his group. He planned that such motivation would be enough for students who did not believe in him before. R's absence was supposed to have the desired results, so the boy wasn't worried. Just as Sang-ho said that only our hero was left to deal with, his phone rang. A voice on the phone asked if Kang Yu-jong was still alive. The main character was running down the street feeling scared after talking to Sung-hwa. The boy wondered what fun the first-class predators have. Soon, he stopped to catch his breath. Sweat poured down his face. The young man caught himself thinking that he had never been so scared in his life. For a brief moment, memories flashed through his mind. It was a split second. He saw a boy, covered in scars, repeating that they were both dead. After that, our young man had a severe headache. It happened for the first time and he didn't know for sure if it was a memory or déjà vu. However, the boy decided to postpone thoughts and reflections about this for later. For him, it was more important now to get to the hospital as soon as possible. Yujong found a friend's room. When he walked in, he saw Zhonghua with his arm and leg in plaster. The guy was worried about whether his friend was comfortable and how badly he was injured. Told how he got trapped by Zhou Sangho's pack. It was unpleasant for him to remember that evening. The boy felt embarrassed. Yujong sympathized with his friend. He understood that such cruelty was already too much. Therefore, he suggested that his friend file a police report. But it was in vain. The place where everything happened did not have cameras. The only evidence was body odor. In addition, the police always avoided cases where predators were involved. Zhonghua felt incredibly ashamed because he had been beaten so badly. He sat on the bed and hardly raised his eyes. Our main character realized that now he feels neither anger nor desire for revenge. Fear took over his whole body. His friend, feeling guilty and never looking up, said that from now on their group should be considered destroyed. While Zhonghua was apologizing and saying how uncomfortable the situation was, Yuzhong was relieved. However, he did not voice this but continued to reassure his friend. But in reality, our hero had no friends or anyone who saw him as a human since the moment he stopped transforming. Only Zhonghua became his friend and treated the boy well. And although Kang did not understand the reason for such kindness, he was grateful for it to the point of tears. And when a friend was defeated, our hero felt like a coward to complain about the disintegration of the pack. It was too vile for him. These thoughts depressed Yuzhong. He took a bottle of water and poured it over his head to regain consciousness. Confused by this, our young man turned to his friend and asked not to disband the group. As long as the bullies from the class are blackmailing him, the boy did not want it to end like that. He suggested that Zhonghua persuade sympathetic classmates while his friend was in the hospital. He was also going to regain his ability to reincarnate. This phrase caused considerable surprise. Yuzhong believed that this would make a big difference, and it would also offset his lack of combat skills. Therefore, our main character, returning to the hospital bed on which Yu was sitting, asked his friend, the leader of the pack, not to give up. Zhonghua listened to his friend, surprised and moved by what he heard, and scrolled through everything that happened again. Yuzhong walked down the street, bypassing the crowd. His friend's words sounded in his head. Apologized, but all the above was not enough for him to decide to continue the fight for leadership. The boy agreed. If the friend succeeded in reincarnation, it would help the cause. But now he is on his own. Predator High School is a place where everything is in the hands of the powerful. No matter which of the top 3 predators you are, if you are weak, you will not be followed. Zhonghua looked out the window thoughtfully. He understood that he could not do it alone. Therefore, the only correct decision will be to dissolve the group. But our main character is not the only one who came to the hospital to see his friend. Members of the Zhou Sangho gang also visited the patient to remind him to keep his mouth shut. Josue threatened that in case of disobedience, he would not suffer. They will make trouble for Yuzhong's friend. So the boy sat on the bed and mentally apologized to Kang for getting him involved in these events. Our main character was getting his soda from the street vending machine and thinking that his friend was right. Even after starting his training, it was already too late for him. The boy could not reincarnate. Suddenly, the boy heard someone calling him a kitten. Dassel approached the young man and ordered him to go with him, putting his hand on his shoulders. And after them, a stranger approached the vending machine with drinks to buy water. A young man was walking along the path in the park a few meters behind our hero and enjoying his drink. The tiger was walking and talking on the phone. He was telling someone what he found in the end, where he left his cell phone. And then, looking closely at the boys who were walking ahead, the stranger realized that something interesting was happening there. He hung up the phone, promising to call back, and he himself followed. Josue, Kwan, Dassel, and Johan were standing around the corner smoking. They were discussing that Kang Yuzhong had disappeared from their sight. If Zhou Sangho sees him in the hospital, he will make him stay silent. It was still a mystery to them what these guys had done. Josue received the message and told his friends that Songhua, the one who dealt with them, gave some instructions. But the friends did not hurry with the implementation. Joe suggested hunting in the Sangha area on the main street instead. Predators haven't been going there since high school, so they were expecting a good time. But Johan and Dassault did not support the initiative. They are tired of such entertainment. Leopard wanted to relieve his stress when he saw Yujong. Later, the boys went off to do their own business. Johan also left his friend alone. Dassault used this time to think. The boy understood that despite Songhua's help, the entire first group was leaning towards Sangho. Therefore, he decided to gain points and consolidate his position. And it was at this moment that Yujong caught his eye. Of course, the boy did not hold back his desire to beat him. Dassault joyfully told our hero that he appeared very timely. He assumed that he had come to visit Yuzhonghua. Kong was standing by the wall, getting up from the beating. The boy confirmed that he had indeed visited his friend. Park hit our young man again after these words. He enjoyed making a weaker opponent suffer. And besides, it was a way to get information out about what Zhonghua had managed to tell his partner. Yuzhong tried to get up from the asphalt. He wondered why Dassault was asking about this, and also why he was looking for him, because he didn't have half the authority of and the silence of our main character only made the opponent more angry. He was ready to beat out the answer with his fists. But something has changed in our young man's feelings. He was much more determined than ever before. The boy even saw the movements of his abuser when he struck. He could clearly see the fist flying at his head, but just seeing was not enough. In just a few seconds, Yuzhong fell to the ground, and Dassault continued to take out his anger on him. The young man kicked our hero. He shouted that the boy did not belong in their class, and all this because was with him. Placing his foot on Kang's throat, Dassault demanded an answer. He was trying to find out what exactly Zhonghua said. Yuzhong was still silent as the abuser blurted out a response. He repeated in his mind how much nonsense he had told his friend. But the boy didn't want it to end with these empty conversations. Dassault transformed into a leopard and grabbed our hero by the throat. Kang decided that he would hold back the word. He will hunt his opponent. The boy found a brick with his hand and swung at the beast. It was not possible to hit, but it was possible to surprise Leopard. The predator hit the young man even harder in the body. He taunted the weaker one, reminding him that Yuzhong can't transform and doesn't know what it feels like to transform. But these words only angered our main character. He said in his mind that he knew the feeling, but now he was just aiming. The young man's plan was to pretend to fall. This should have made it possible to crush the leopard's leg with a brick. This time, everything worked. Feeling terrible pain in his leg, Dassault screamed desperately and lost control of the situation. This was enough for our hero to take advantage of the situation and run as far as possible from his opponent. Yuzhong took advantage of the fact that physical strength during transformation increases significantly, but the endurance of predators decreases. The boy ran as fast as he could. He hoped that the trick he had worked would help, because Leopard would use up even more of his stamina trying to catch up with the fugitive. In order not to be caught, the boy had to limit his opponent's ability to move. At first, it seemed that this plan really worked and there were chances to get away from the offender. However, Dassault gathered himself and made a predatory jump towards our boy. A few graceful maneuvers and the leopard already had its paw on the neck of our protagonist. A series of powerful blows rained down on Yuzhong again. Dassault, angered by the prank, tried to take revenge. At the same time, he shouted that it was useless to hope for Zhonghua's protection. Our main character was lying on the asphalt, almost unconscious and scrolling through his actions. Did he underestimate his opponent? Leopard also defeated him, a weakling, in battle. Dassault picked up the young man by the shoulders and shouted for him to continue fighting with his hands. But Yuzhong's strength was almost gone, so he just took blow after blow. But between blows, he still gathered his spirit and stepped on his opponent's leg several times, which caused quite unpleasant sensations. Of course, this did not help him to escape, and in a moment he received a good blow from Leopard. Already lying on the asphalt, the boy stated that, although he began to clearly see the fist during the impact, it did not help him to dodge in any way. Our hero realized that he had reached his limit. All attempts to move were in vain, and the head was spinning. And even in this condition, the young man was worried about how he would appear at school now. It couldn't be worse, but he had nothing to regret. Dassault continued to beat his victim, shouting insults and threats from time to time. But suddenly, Someone behind turned to him, asking what he was doing in the middle of the day. Leopard did not like such an intervention. He aggressively asked who this stranger was, and Yuzhong half-consciously saw that it was the red-haired tiger that he had already seen earlier in the city. The young man tried to understand who was standing in front of him, a predator or a herbivore. Since he had not seen it before, it was quite difficult to determine. But while he was scrolling through the possible options in his head, a stranger came close and took Leopard by the paw. The guy joked that the predator behaves like a big cat and advised him to relax. Dassel was not in the mood for a friendly conversation, so he said that he didn't care where this uninvited guest got out, but he had better get out. Then he swung to hit the boy, but missed. The stranger's reaction was lightning fast. At first he dodged the blow, and in a second he was several meters away. Of course, such a predator did not expect. Leopard could not believe that it was possible to dodge a blow at such a distance, and Yuzhong somehow almost recovered. The boy growled in displeasure, asking where our hero found an assistant. While Dassel scoffed that Kang had brought a tiger just like himself to help him, our young man remembered the fight yesterday involving a stranger. Hearing these words, the redhead asked Yuzhong in surprise if he was indeed one of the 3 great predators as well. The guy was in a very good mood. Leopard laughed. He said that in any case, this is a complete misunderstanding. The boy also added that they all consider themselves the best. The stranger replied to Dassel that leopards are just as big cats. Therefore, you should not consider yourself inferior. This feeling is not justified by anything. This threw Park off balance. He looked angrily at the uninvited guest and warned him that he had better not speak as if someone of a lower rank was nearby. The redhead laughed out loud, repeating that Dassel really felt inferior. The predator did not like this behavior at all, so he started aggressing towards the stranger. Still in a great mood, Tiger turned to our main character. The young man was going to show him something interesting. He set a timer for 1 minute and assured Yuzhong that in that time, without transforming, he would make the leopard kiss the asphalt. Of course, Dassel was not going to swallow such an insult and immediately went on the attack. And despite the fact that the speed of the predator was high, the stranger deftly dodged the blow. In another moment, Tiger felt a kick on himself. Blocking his chest, he moved several meters back on the asphalt. Assessing the opponent's strength, the redhead began to attack himself. The boy quickly ran up to Leopard and started beating him. One after another, aimed blows hit the predator's head and body, knocking it off balance. Dassel was angry, but even more surprised. It did not occur to him that now he suffered from a boy who had not even transformed. While the predator fought back and asked the opponent if he was in his right mind to get into a fight with a transformed beast, he missed several powerful blows and ended up on the ground. Yuzhong watched the fight and couldn't stop thinking that this tiger was incredible. What he saw yesterday shocked him, and today the impression was even stronger because the boy was in human form. Meanwhile, Dassel was struggling to catch his breath. He was already quite tired from this match, and his red-haired rival just mocked the predator cheerfully. The young man told him to wake up faster because there were still 30 seconds left and also offered to bring ice. The leopard's anger reached its peak. He threatened to kill the defiant opponent and released his claws to show the seriousness of his intentions. Our main character saw that the matter was becoming too serious and decided that he should help his savior. The boy saw a stick nearby that he could use. But the stranger stopped his initiative, forcing him to promise that our young man would only observe. Dassel quickly and aggressively began to attack, but the stranger effectively parried the blows. And then he started his own offensive. His every move hit the target. Having stuck it in the predator's nose, the boy kindly disoriented him, and while he came to his senses, he managed to laugh at his opponent. Leopard continued to try to punish the cocky foreigner, but missed blow after blow. After the last one, inflicted with a foot, Dassel lost consciousness and, turning into a human form, fell on the asphalt. Smiling, the stranger took out his phone and checked the timer. He liked the result very much. Kang Yuzhong stood next to the unconscious Park Dassel and thought how extraordinary it was in human form to have such capabilities. Our hero thought maybe it would happen to him one day. But these thoughts were interrupted by a stranger who approached him from behind. Smiling widely, the young man praised our hero for his desperate fight with Leopard and his original move with a brick. The tiger said that he was sure that our young man had both fighting spirit and tenacity, and asked Yuzhong if it was really so. Kang replied that because their world was a natural selection, he could not reincarnate. The stranger cleaned the pockets of the defeated opponent and objected to our hero. After all, it was as a person that he defeated this guy. And while our young man thought that this tiger could reincarnate whenever he wanted, the redhead told him that he learned how to transform only a month ago and still does not fully control this process. Yuzhong did not expect to hear such information, so he began to ask how the stranger managed to become so strong. The tiger caught a phrase that stuck with him. Our hero, not being able to reincarnate, asked him not about how to achieve this, but about how to become stronger. The stranger said that he usually does not help such guys. However, our hero thought it was cool, so he asked to name one reason why Yuzhong wants to become stronger. After thinking for a few minutes, Kang replied that his school was a mistake. He wants the power to be able to deal with this garbage. The redhead put his hand on our main character's shoulder and offered to come to Jeonju to study with him. Jeonju is a city where you can take a leisurely stroll. This slogan perfectly described perhaps the most dangerous settlement in Korea. The invitation to the city of thugs threw Yuzhong a little off track. He did not expect this. It turns out that the stranger lived in Jeonju, and he came to Seoul to visit his friend, an elephant whom our hero had already seen. Shocked by the information he received, Kang couldn't form a few words. It was more than just training, but the tiger sternly said that you won't get stronger just by talking. Yuzhong rubbed the back of his head, trying to find a solution. There is still a lot of time left before the holidays. The city is far from here, and I need to persuade my father. Our hero thought about it. The stranger only concluded that there were really many reasons. But the fact that the young man was thinking about it meant that he had not yet given up hope. The redhead said goodbye and left. Finally, he named the area in Jeonju where he could be found and his name as Choi Kang-ho, Red Tiger. The guy assured that everyone there knows him. At home, the boy talked with his father. He said that he wanted to take a special academic leave. Dad wondered why the boy had such a decision. Yuzhong timidly muttered that he would like to see something. However, the father was surprised that his son needed 2 whole months for this. Our main character expected screams and rejection from his father. However, he unexpectedly received permission. Dad said the young man could do whatever he wanted. Kang handed his father a piece of paper. It was a consent he had to sign. At the School of Predators, the rules allowed to take an academic leave of absence for 2 months, and it wouldn't hurt success. Students who lost in the rating duel, those who couldn't get used to school life, want to transfer. But the way to a normal school is closed to them. Therefore, they have 60 days to find another institution. The father saw his son's desire, traces of beatings and bruises. Despite Yuzhong's apprehension, the man trusted the young man and signed the document. Dad only asked the boy what he planned to do during his time off from school. Our main character has disappeared. Telling the truth was a risky option, so he voiced only part of what he planned. The young man told about a friend in the province where he wants to study. Father asked which province he meant. But nothing happened after the name Jeonju. The man remained silent and then gave instructions not to harm and to study well so that one day he could help his father. Yuzhong rushed to the school to solve the academic leave issue. He said that he really needed her now. The guy held out the prepared documents. Kang told the curator that since he did not have a mother, only his father left the signature. The woman verified the signature and promised to give the application to the teacher for consideration. The case was settled. After that, the young man left the office. A colleague approached the curator. The man asked about the process of changing schools, which included 2 months of academic leave and then a vacation. This year, there were no talented students in the first grade, except for 3 big beasts. Ratings were low, so the curator should not have special incentives to work. But the woman objected. The 3 great beasts were a burden. She held on for so long. Our hero walked and thought that in any case, after the Parc de Sol attack, he couldn't lead a normal school life. Therefore, it was necessary to choose either to drop out of school or to transfer. But the boy was not going to do either. He did not want to be beaten by predators. Yuzhong went to the mailbox to post the letter. He wrote to Manhwa in detail and apologized. But the boy wanted to show himself what he was capable of. At least try to do it. A few days later, our main character was already in the city of Jeonju, in the area that Red Tiger named him. Now, he was trying to figure out how to find a new companion. One of the local boys noticed the confused young man on the street and warned Yu-jong that it was dangerous to walk here. The stranger looked as if he had just gotten out of a fight. He noted that just one wrong step in this area and our hero could lose everything. Thanking Kang for the warning, he moved closer to the stranger and gave him several packages of various medicines so he could apply ointment to his wounds. While the boy was handling the beatings, Yu-jong asked if he knew his familiar red-haired tiger. After thinking for a while, the young man could not help. He said it was the first time he had heard of such a thing. This upset our main character a little, because Tiger told him that he was quite famous in his town and district. The stranger offered Yu-jong to walk with him. His friends were waiting for him nearby, so he said that he could also ask them. Our young man agreed. He followed the passerby and reasoned that this city turned out to be not so dangerous. Nothing bad has happened to him in all that time. But the boy pushed these thoughts away when he saw where the stranger had taken him. Behind the building of a warehouse, strange youths, more like robbers, were waiting for them. The conversation between them also did not bode well. The passerby's friends reported that they were walking with monkeys today, and the young man replied that he had already fought and killed 3 of them on the way. The new moons exchanged mock threats before spotting our main character in his golden eyes. The stranger who brought our hero here told how Yu-jong asked if he knew the red tiger. The guy then lied and lured him into an ambush. Noticing the young man's surprised look, the stranger said that Choi Kang-ho's name should not be mentioned in this area. This was his wrong move. No amount of explanation that Kang didn't want to get into that situation helped. A few minutes later, he was already lying on the asphalt, beaten and almost unconscious. The stranger who had lured him into this trap bent over Yu-jong and returned the medicine to him. The guy laughed that he needed them more now. Our main character was lying in a dirty alley among a mountain of garbage. And then he started laughing. The boy said that it was not for nothing that Red Tiger said that he was famous in his town. It was really so. Kong felt the atmosphere of this city. He already walked the streets barefoot and in torn clothes. The hound dog reprimanded the young man and forced him to take off his sneakers. Yu-jong had no choice but to give the shoes away. The boy was already beginning to worry that he would not be able to return to Seoul if he did not find Tiger. After all, the money and phone have already been taken from him. When our hero began to think that he would die in an unknown place, he saw a red-haired boy nearby. His joy knew no bounds. Kang hoped that the search was finally over. But in vain. It was not Choi Kang-ho at all, but an unfamiliar, aggressive young man who was not in the mood for a friendly conversation. Just when Yu-jong thought that he should be more careful, a girl on a motorcycle flew past him. She approached the red-haired boy with whom our young man had recently been talking. The conversation between them could hardly be called warm and friendly. The altercation turned into something more serious. Rudy and his friends who were nearby had already transformed into beasts and stood ready to start a fight. Yu-jong could see that it was getting dangerous. He wanted to inform someone about the conflict situation, but his phone was also taken away. But the girl, it seems, didn't need help. She also turned into a lioness and only provoked her opponents with words, showing no fear. The confrontation began. Surrounded by rivals, the girl skillfully and quickly dealt with them. One by one, the hooligans were eliminated from the match, losing consciousness and transforming into humans. Only the redhead remained. He saw that all his friends could no longer help, so, threatening the girl with violence, he attacked. However, the words did not cause the desired fear or anxiety in the girl. She laughed and rushed into battle, deftly dodging her opponent's blows. And in a few minutes, the self-confident young man flew straight to the asphalt. Not a trace of the proud beast remained. When the girl went to her motorcycle, 4 unconscious boys were left behind on the ground. She took out a clipper, went over to the red-haired slob and shaved a few strands of hair off his head. Yu-jong watched from afar what was happening, but it didn't go unnoticed. The girl, without being distracted from her work, said to get out if the guy was not here on business. Not having the slightest desire to anger such a serious fighter, our main character simply walked away. He heard his name being called, and the very next moment, sneakers flew in his direction, almost hitting the boy. It was a present from a girl. The young man was grateful, but could not take such a gift. considering it theft. He walked over to the red-haired boy whose shoes were taken and put the sneakers next to him. After a few minutes, the sound of the motorcycle engine was heard again. The girl came back and asked Yujong if he came from Seoul. Then she put our young man on the back of the bike. Kang Ho talked about a meeting in Seoul, but the young man's arrival was a surprise. The girl couldn't help but ask why he is barefoot. Isn't he afraid to catch something? Kang said that's not the point. He simply cannot steal someone else's thing. This amused her. Our hero was taken to a relatively safe area, and in the morning, the girl promised to return for him. Although the young man was able to relax a little here, fatigue and hunger showed. The last time he ate was at lunch. Besides, he walked half the city. Yujong remembered how Kang Ho and Lioness fought. He didn't regret being beaten and robbed because he has to become stronger like them to survive in this area. The young man's eyes involuntarily closed. He fell asleep. Through a dream, our hero heard some sounds nearby. Little by little, his consciousness returned to him and he realized that the sounds were a danger. With horror, the boy opened his eyes and screamed. But he saw Red Tiger nearby, eating his breakfast. Somehow, Yujong ended up in his apartment. Kang Ho admitted that his guest was really stubborn for daring to come. The shock passed, and the young man tried to understand what had happened. And then he burst into tears of relief and joy. Then the boy saw food, and his eyes lit up. The master of the house gave him his portion as well, realizing how hungry his guest was. Yujong, not taking his eyes off his breakfast, said that his money and phone had been stolen as soon as he arrived. It seemed to the boy that he felt what it was like to die in a foreign land. Kang then scolded his friend for not clarifying that he was famous here, but in a negative light. This sent a wave of laughter from Kang Ho. He said he regretted that they had not met on better terms. But in fact, Yujong's arrival really surprised the boy, and was not part of his plans. In Seoul, he impulsively told him everything, not suspecting that the young man would really come. Now I had to think about what to do with him, and while he watched the guest eagerly eat, an idea arose. Tiger decided that it might work. To begin with, the guy extended his hand to our hero to get to know him properly. He gave his name, said that he was 17 years old, and that his specialty was incredible strength. Yujong introduced himself in response, said that he is also 17 years old, and his special feature is that he cannot transform. Red Tiger patted his friend on the shoulder and advised him to eat well, because he would have to take care of himself later, and cheerfully added that he kindly invites you to hell. The boys went up to the roof. Kang Ho decided to admit that he had said a lot of nonsense that day. Therefore, I was very surprised when Yujong actually arrived. Our hero was afraid that it was a rejection. However, Tiger assured that he would keep the word he gave in Seoul. But he wondered if he would get anything in return. Kang at first replied that, of course. But then he awkwardly told that all the money he had for his studies was stolen from him. This made Tiger quite angry. He shouted that in this city you can't carry cash, especially large amounts. But Kang Ho still found a solution to this problem. Yujong should be his first test subject. The guy has his own pack, which is quite strong. But he really lacks participants, so he wants to try to adopt some weakling and develop his abilities. Therefore, Tiger decided that our hero would be the first test subject and model of success. If he can be made stronger, then he can develop anyone. Yujong was delighted with what he heard. The guy agreed to everything, if only it would help him in practice. To begin with, the teacher gave him the task of passing an aptitude test. The overall assessment will help them understand how to proceed. According to the results, our hero scored 20 points out of 35. They measured his strength, endurance, perseverance, and reaction speed. The strength indicator has improved the most. But Kang Ho said that even this is enough to go to the city center in the evening to hunt. The city of Jeonju is conditionally divided into old and new parts. The tiger said that the old city is lawlessness. It is dangerous even for him to go there. And in the new part of the city, there are many criminals who are afraid to even raise their heads in the old Jeonju. So Yujong's task became hunting the latter, or more precisely, on those who engage in robbery. Red Tiger explained that this way he would be able to help people and earn money by rummaging in their pockets. Such an instruction shocked our main character. He indignantly declared that this was theft. The boy did not want to do this. But such nobility was not shared by his mentor. The tiger noticed that before this, the young man promised to do everything necessary. But Yuzhong didn't want to commit a crime, so he still doubted. Kang Ho took him by the shoulders and popularly explained why the boy's words were complete nonsense, and such behavior was stifling. The mentor reminded of everything that our hero suffered, about life on the run, about constant beatings. And then he asked how long he would live like this. The tiger said in Yuzhong's own words that the world is natural selection, and in it, the weak are just meat that the stronger will eat. Since the boy came to study to force his abusers to kneel, such violence would also be a crime, based on the young man's logic. Our protagonist did not want to return to Seoul as a weakling. Therefore, I promised to try to fulfill the task and went to work. But he immediately returned. He had absolutely no experience in fighting, so he decided to ask his teacher for advice. Kang Ho recommended doing as our young man did with Leopard. A weak body and lack of skills can be compensated by weapons and fast attack. In addition, they have a symbol of one of the three predators, golden eyes. Sometimes this alone is enough to sow fear in the opponent's soul. Yuzhong noticed a robber taking money from a smaller schoolboy in a dark alley and decided to intervene. The tiger's eyes worked only at first, activating the thief's instinct for self-preservation. But when our young man, with a trembling voice and uncertain posture, demanded that the robber return the money, everything went to waste. The participants of the conflict looked at him in surprise. The thief was clearly not going to obey such uncertain orders. Meanwhile, two henchmen of the criminal were already ready to remove the brave defender from their path. A few blows, and our young man was already lying under the fence with an angry nose without any chance of revenge. Kang Ho worked on the mistakes, explaining that you should choose hermits who will not be a problem. But to Yuzhong, they all looked the same. However, Tiger also saw something else in this situation, the young man's incredible tenacity. He received several strong blows but ignored them, all because the boy could not transform for a long time. Beast rage, characteristic of predators, is not characteristic of him. But there was a place where even the naive like our hero became wild. The tiger smiled enigmatically. It was a potato field. A long time ago, the owner grandfather told hungry children, warning them that they can collect potatoes, but they should not get caught with stolen ones. When asked by Yuzhong what will happen when he is caught, Choi replied that the grandfather will beat the thief to death. And then he joked that it was really scary before. And now the owner has grown old and his memory is no longer the same. The boys went to the field. Kang was already tired and wondered why potatoes were grown in a mountain valley. But his mentor raised a finger to his mouth, a sign that he should behave very quietly. From this place, they had to proceed very carefully. Already near the Samison field, the boys peeked out from the bushes, and Tiger said to watch his actions and then repeat them. The master skillfully crawled to the field, scooped potatoes into a bag, and silently returned. Choi Kang-ho said that such actions will help the young man succeed in this matter. But Yuzhong doubted if he could steal. The teacher held out a bag of vegetables and said that it was now a gift. But from this moment on, potatoes will become a currency for our hero. This phrase slightly confused the young man. Since Yuzhong did not want to take money from bullies, the student's meal plan was changed. Although it was supposed to be difficult at first, but still, one meal will cost 10 potatoes. When the supplies ran out, the mentor said the boy could return home to Seoul. Since our hero was Kang Ho's first student, the young man told how to get to a peach tree that grew nearby. The fruits on it were extremely tasty. The tiger said that for one peach from this tree, the young man could get one portion of dinner. In order to develop and achieve the desired results, Yuzhong had to eat very well, in addition to training. This was especially important in his weight category. So the mentor said that if the boy growled his stomach and flopped slowly, he would immediately fly out. At that, he waved his hand and left. Our young man nervously asked if Tiger was really going to leave him here. To which I received the answer that Kang Ho has his own affairs, he is not unemployed. The thought of having to enter someone else's field and steal potatoes was depressing for our boy. So he decided to go to the peach tree first. He followed the path in search of sweet fruits. And when he came out of the forest, he saw that the peach tree was on a hanging rock, and climbing to it would be another challenge. Yuzhong came closer to the mountain and began to wonder if he could climb it if he stood and leaned on the rocks. the boy decided that it is necessary not only to think, but also to act. Therefore, centimeter by centimeter, he tried to climb. Having climbed a few meters, the boy grabbed a stone, which he could not stand. In a second, our hero slid quickly down, frightened and confused. Finding himself back at the beginning of the path, looking at his torn hands from which blood flowed, the young man again returned to the idea of going to the potato field. Kang tried to repeat everything exactly as his mentor had taught him. While he crawled to the field, he repeated in his head that under no circumstances should you get caught with the stolen thing. When he got to the rows of potatoes and started to dig, the boy thought about how stealing someone else's potatoes could be useful to him. When he found the vegetables and began to pick them, he mentally asked for forgiveness from his grandfather, the owner of the field. The young man assured himself that he would definitely repay him. At this time, the silhouette of a man appeared behind him. The farmer gave our hero a good scare. The man was surprised that after so many years, thieves got into his field and rummaged around so loudly. With a creepy look on his face, the grandfather said that the face of our hero was unfamiliar to him. And then he asked if he knew that he was now in danger. Yujong was slowly returning. Both cases turned out to be not as easy as he had hoped. His face was covered with bruises, ghouls and scratches. But what he saw when he returned to the forest caused him complete despair. A bag of potatoes, which the young man carelessly left on the ground, was dragged by a wild boar. Our hero grabbed a wooden stick and rushed to chase away the four-legged thief to collect the remains of his potatoes. In despair, the boy realized that the wild boar had eaten more than half of his supplies. There are only 15 potatoes left in the bag. Yujong pulled himself together and realized that if this continued, he would be kicked out in less than 3 days. I didn't want to go home like that. Therefore, the boy pulled himself together and hid the potato in a tree. He resolutely set out for the task again. The boy reasoned that if Kang Ho was able to do it so easily, then it must be real. There was definitely a method of action. It just had to be found. Our main character understood that thinking is not enough. You need to train your body as well. The potato grandfather sat watching his field and drank tea. He heard that an uninvited guest had come again. The man remarked that the first thief in many years had zeal. The man sat and waited for our young man to make even more efforts. After all, he wanted to teach the impudent and break his character. 10 days later, our main character was leaving his task and thought that climbing the mountains every day like this is really hard work. But he did not give up. He worked on his endurance and strength every day, and today the boy decided to try again to conquer this rock before sunset. But this time, the miracle didn't happen either. The stone, which the young man grabbed for support, fell off the cliff and our hero fell face down. He tried to try again, but realized that was his limit for today. His legs were shaking. He could no longer get up in such a state. Yujong decided to go to the potato field. But before that, he prepared carefully. In order to somehow disguise himself, the young man rolled on the ground. But when he was digging up vegetables, the potato grandfather was already standing behind him, as always, and mockingly asked why it was so noisy here. In a moment, a strong big fist flew into the head of our hero, and all the obtained potatoes scattered around. Kong was lying on the ground, and the groundskeeper, laughing, told him that this was the most visible place. And so it was every day. The guy couldn't understand why he kept getting caught. This time, he plucked a lot of potatoes. All that remained was to successfully carry them out. But again, the grandfather was already behind him and said that the young man's skills as a thief had not improved at all. And then the boy's punishment was already usual. Strong blows from the man did not make himself wait long. Yujong lay on the ground in a moment of despair. Today, he challenged himself more than 5 times, constantly raising the level of difficulty. The guy destroyed all the potatoes he got. He had made no progress since yesterday. Our main character realized that this cannot continue. Without any results, after a few days he will be fired. The boy remembered Tiger's words about a place where even the naive become wild. Therefore, it was necessary to free one's animal temperament and natural instincts. So at Kung Ho's house, he plucked up the courage and decided to ask a friend for advice. Yujong said that he keeps coming across the potato field. He does not understand what the problem is, so he would like to hear at least some advice. Kong Ho took it as just the whining of a weakling. He directly said that our hero lacks the wildness to achieve at least some results. But such advice did not make it clearer. The boy grabbed his head, trying to understand at least something. Red Tiger suggested watching a wildlife documentary that was on TV. Maybe then the young man will find the answer. Yu Zhong took the advice in search of any information. He watched a film about lions and hyenas hunting gazelles. The barbaric nature of wild animals. The next day, the young man was picking potatoes and noticed that the owner of the field was already approaching him. The man noticed in his mind that he liked the zeal of this boy, but he did not believe that this would help him change. However, there is no need to despair. Kang strapped the bag with his booty to his back and calmly stood before the owner of the field. Gathering courage, the young man spoke. He was really interested to know what his mistake was, so he asked directly how the man always finds him. A loud, gleeful laugh was heard in response. The audacity and simplicity of our boy liked the farmer. He hinted that he is the master of this land after all. This conversation took him back several years. Then the same question was asked by a red-haired boy who was also trying to be unnoticed in the field. The man still told his secret to Yu Zhong. He had excellent hearing and heard all the sounds in his field. Our main character asked if there was any possibility at all to steal something inconspicuously from the field. But the farmer said that only 1 in 50 people succeeded. Kong wasn't even surprised that he kept getting caught here. The boy looked at the master and said that even though he was unscrupulous, he would now use the wild animal method. The man even rejoiced at this glimpse of wildness in the young man's eyes. He assumed that the boy wanted to reincarnate and take the prey with soap, but the plan of our hero was completely different. While the owner of the field was thinking, Yu Zhong threw sand in his eyes. When the man was able to open his eyes, the boy was gone. Our hero ran with all his might. He watched herbivores quickly flee from predators. He lacked such wildness. What he saw amused the owner of the field. He thought the boy would turn into a tiger and run away. But the young man made him run after him at a respectable age. The man shouted that when he caught the thief, all his efforts would be in vain. But our guy had a plan. He began to untie the bag of potatoes bit by bit to pour out some of it. The man immediately tripped over vegetables on the ground and fell. Yu Zhong continued to run fast, loudly shouting words of apology to the farmer. Potato Grandfather did not give up. He entered into excitement from this confrontation. So the man transformed into a huge elephant so as not to fall tripping over the fruits. Seeing that a huge elephant was running after him, our main character trembled with terror. However, he pulled himself together and decided to use this fear to escape. The owner of the field looked surprised at the speed with which Yu Zhong began to run away. He realized that the desperate fear had overcome the remorse, and the indecisive look had also disappeared. The man admitted that he would not be able to catch the thief this way. And I also thought, if this young man wants to survive, then he must always act as he is now, without doubts or thoughts. Cowardice is only food. Then he slowly turned back into a human and thought nostalgically how long it had been since he transformed and scared thieves. Meanwhile, our protagonist ran to safety and untied his loot bag. A pile of potatoes lay in front of him, and the young man's happiness knew no bounds. Another 10 days have passed. Yu Zhong lay crouched in the potato field again. He tried to complete the task and listened to all the sounds around him. Then a noise reached his ears. Kang realized that his grandfather was already approaching, so he ran away. And at this time, something began to fly into his back. The owner heard that his regular guest was already in the field, so he immediately came up to teach him and chase him away, throwing potatoes at him. Each such blow hit the target precisely, causing severe pain. However, the boy did not slow down and quickly ran away from the field without leaving his bag. The farmer stopped and just laughed after Yu Zhong, who did not slow down as he ran away from the field. The man paid tribute to his tenacity and mentally praised him. Enjoying his success, the boy reached the forest where he relaxed. A wild boar ran towards him. An old acquaintance was always waiting for our hero to give him a couple of potatoes. Hanging the trophy bag on a tree branch, he ordered the pig to look after the potatoes, and he himself went to conquer the rock. The guy was determined that everything would work out today. The young man approached the mountain and began to climb. Meanwhile, someone was watching him carefully from behind the bushes. Kang-ho stood by the tree and wondered why his charge still couldn't pick peaches. After all, it was possible to steal potatoes from him. And then he understood. The young man did not find a safe way to the tree, but chose the most difficult one. Therefore, the mission, which was conceived as a service, turned into a difficult test for him. But, surprisingly, everything worked out for our hero, even on the most difficult path. It remained to pass one dangerous section, and he would have conquered this rock. While Red Tiger was nervous that his student was hesitating too long, someone came up behind him, covered his mouth, and pulled him aside. Grandfather Potato forced him to watch in silence. Kang-ho was surprised to see the man. And then he shouted, "Why did the farmer just stand there and watch when the boy was shaking so much?" But even so far, he took him aside. The man expected a warmer welcome because he had not seen the boy for a long time. But he said that he has been watching the boy for several days. It stops at a height from which a fall will not cause much damage. But Red Tiger was still worried. His student could accidentally get injured if he made a mistake while climbing. And he didn't ask for such a risky course from the very beginning. So Kang-ho decided to leave and refuse Yu-jong. The owner of the potato field was surprised by such a reaction. He thought that if he fell, the boy would simply turn into a beast. He is a tiger man. Here, Kang-ho understood why they spoke different languages. He turned to the man and explained that Yu-jong could not reincarnate. There was silence in the air. The farmer did not expect such a turn of events. It could be easily read by the expression on his face. Meanwhile, our main character slowly climbed to his goal. He noticed that, in a strange way, when he started to climb, the strong willpower disappeared somewhere, as if he was lying to himself. But Kang pulled himself together to be brave until the end. The boy saw a ledge above, which could be grabbed and overcome a difficult section. But then, doubts began to creep into his mind. When the young man had already succumbed to disturbing thoughts, not understanding why he was taking risks here, he heard someone calling him from below. Looking at the ground, he saw a potato grandfather. The young man asked what the man was doing here. The owner of the field said that he spoke with Kang-ho recently. He found out that our hero is his student. The farmer added that because he did not know this before, he treated the young man quite badly in the field. Yu-jong smiled awkwardly, saying that it wasn't too bad. The man then said that he heard that our hero had come to Jeonju to practice, but cannot transform into a beast. Therefore, he advised me to leave everything and return home. Grandfather continued to say that fighting beastmen in human form while so weak was a very bad idea. Yu-jong objected. As an example, he named Kang-ho, who, being human, defeats the transformed. This inspired hope that our hero would be able to do the same. The man denied. It is inappropriate to compare these two guys, because the Red Tiger has been training since early childhood. Moreover, they were all different. Down to the bones. The grandfather said that the young man could get into a really dangerous situation. Even now, if our hero falls without transforming, it can end in trouble. In the end, the farmer concluded that the boy would not be able to. Yu-jong remembered all the times he had been beaten and insulted because of his weakness and inability to transform. The young man asked if people like him who cannot transform should really live and suffer. Our main character repeated that he does not want to live like a rag, but he also does not want to die. The boy remembered that he came here not to pick potatoes and peaches, but to become stronger. His goal was to become tougher, stronger, and more agile in order to trick his abusers. While the young man thought about all this, he climbed higher and higher, conquering the rock. Yu-jong forced himself not to give up, but to place his hand and then his foot on the ledges that led him to the peach tree. And when he, breathing heavily, broke away from his thoughts, he noticed that he had done it. The owner of the potato field stood below and looked at the young man on the rock. The man smiled easily and had a contented look. The farmer then turned back to Kang-ho and said he wanted to see this guy reach the top. Yu-jong reached the peach tree and was about to pluck the fruit to taste. The only way to overcome the fear of death is to get angry. But even knowing this, only 1 in 100 will be able to do so. The owner of the field was sure that everything would be easy for this young man. The man left, thinking about how wonderful it is to watch people change. Our main character came down with peaches to the ground. The farmer went and ate the juicy fruit, thinking how nice it was that he was treated to it. The next to receive the sweet fruit was a wild boar, with whom our young man so unexpectedly befriended. Kang Ho saw this and said that the student must have forgotten that for every peach you get dinner, and he jokingly advised the boy to starve a little to come to his senses. The boy was very happy to see his mentor, and Red Tiger said that there was a safe path very close by. It could be used instead of doing extreme rock climbing. Then the teacher announced to his ward that the training in this place has already been completed. There is nothing more for him to do here. The mentor noticed that the glow of softness that had been burning in Yuzhong's eyes before had already begun to gradually fade. The boys walked the streets of Jeonju and talked. Kang Ho asked his student if he knew who grapplers and strikers were. Our young man heard about it for the first time. Tiger explained that this applies to fighting styles, such as boxing, taekwondo, kickboxing, hand-to-hand combat. People who use striking-oriented techniques are called strikers. Grapplers use in combat techniques focused on techniques of capture and bending. This is inherent in jiu-jitsu, judo, and wrestling. If the technique is performed correctly, it is possible to defeat even a much larger weight category. But now the boys have a problem. Tiger asked what fighting style people like our main character who can't reincarnate should learn. Yuzhong pondered. Fighting with animals seemed to him quite a difficult task. The young man believed that he needed to overcome the difference in weight. After weighing all the pros and cons, the boy preferred the grappler style, which he happily told his mentor. But in response, I heard that the version was incorrect. The tiger shouted that the young man should never try to fight the reincarnated opponent. As soon as the student saw the trap, he immediately fell into it. The boy reminded him of his fight with the leopard. During transformation, the weight category of predators increases and physical capabilities increase to the limit. For example, Kang Ho asked his student to imagine what his take on a bear would look like. The young man would just hang, swaying. In addition, flexibility, resistance to fractures, etc., changes in the reincarnated. There are those who transform quickly. There are too many parameters to calculate everything and find the answer. Tiger gave another example. There is a risk that, having chosen a hobby, you will come across an opponent who will turn into a hedgehog or a porcupine. That is why in a fight, when the opponent is an animal, it is necessary to win the fight only thanks to blows. Whether reincarnated, everyone is resistant to them. Then the adrenaline rushes in, and even Kang Ho doesn't do very well. Then, no matter how many times you strike in human form, there will be no effect. After that, Choi asked what Kang Yuzhong, who cannot transform into a tiger, should do. Our main character answered that stamina suffers during reincarnation. Therefore, he must run until he wears out the opponent, and then use the weapon and deliver a quick blow. The teacher nodded affirmatively, but I noticed that this answer is only half correct. This upset the boy a bit. He didn't really know what else to add. Tiger confirmed that the transformation drains a lot of stamina. Even high-impact resistance sometimes cannot protect internal organs from damage. So when the opponent gets tired, you need to hit hard and fast until it becomes shocking power. Then you can win without turning into a beast. Kang Ho then explained why our young man's answer was only half correct. All because you cannot be sure that you will escape. After the transformation, the speed also increases. That is why, for greater confidence in victory, you need to think about a trap in advance. To bind the legs, to lock up, to lure into a narrow place, etc. Before the battle, you need to create a favorable position for yourself, and when the opponent falls into a trap, you need to attack. Yuzhong understood that he had to prepare for this, and Tiger continued to tell that in a fight, all means are good because delay can cost life. Now our young man understood how serious everything was, and the fact that his mentor was forcing him to fight without training seemed even dumber. Kang Ho laughed but apologized. He underestimated the hunt for hooligans, although he was certain that the young man would be at his best, and their weight categories are different. From this moment on, the Red Tiger promised to explain everything in detail to our main character. After some time, the theoretical part ended. The teacher explained that all this is about fighting with animals. With people, everything is completely different. After that, Choi called a special guest, Hwang Chonmei. The girl was part of his pack, and had the gene to transform into a lion. He and Yujong were in the same weight category. Therefore, the girl had to help practice the technique of fighting with a person. Huang Chonmei told how she fights without transforming using a weapon. If she's going to fight with nothing in her weight class, limits of availability, strength, both there and there are a lot of flaws. Our main character listened to everything and then wondered how to be in a situation when it will not be possible to use a weapon. The tiger immediately praised him for an excellent question, but the girl noticed that he stuttered a lot in conversation. This annoyed her, but she answered the question. In a fight where vigilance is lost, it is appropriate to use grappling. If you figure it out and have a good technique, that's the end. Kang Ho summarized that in a fight with a human, one should try to use the fascination to the end, and with the animal, capture and quickly beat. Grappling, striking, everything must be done well. Chonmi said it's time to stop talking. Chuncheon High School has been talking too much lately. The girl increased the security fee, but the number of fraudsters continues to grow. That is why, in the vicinity of this school, they plan to open a bully hunting season together with Kang Yujong. Kang Ho noticed the loot. A group of high school students were taking money from the junior students. The tiger asked Chonmei to demonstrate what a fight against a human opponent should look like in practice. The body structure of the girl was similar to the physique of our hero, so it was the best example. Without much enthusiasm, she went to the hooligans. In every fight, it is important to correctly assess the opponent. The first youth was tall, the second was fat, a big difference in weight, the third was short, just like Chonmei. Then the boys watched their girlfriend fight. The mentor advised that when you have to get rid of all opponents, you should not allow goals. Therefore, at first, the girl chose a victim and took the simple guy out of the game with a strong blow to the jaw. She first grabbed the next young man by the legs and then knocked him to the asphalt. And although this opponent could be easily defeated, she, lying on the ground, suppressed him with a painful technique. The last enemy of the three had already transformed into Buffalo and was running at Chonmei. The girl had already prepared for battle, turning into a lioness, but Kang Ho called her. Choi was going to demonstrate to his student how he could subdue the beast while remaining in human form. With a smile that testified to the success of the planned business, the boy went forward, flexing his muscles before the fight. The bull realized that this desperate daredevil was none other than Choi Kang Ho himself, because his fame had long since spread throughout the city. So he went on the attack. For his part, Red Tiger was also somewhat surprised when Bull called his name. However, he didn't have to think about it for long, because in a moment, Kang Ho missed several punches with a chunky right. Next, the strong legs of both opponents went into action. Because of the inflicted kicks, the bull's nostrils flared with rage. Both fought quite hard. Although the tiger was still in human form, Kang Yujong was amazed by its resilience and endurance. The bull swung and struck with all its might. Bang! Choi Kang Ho flew several meters away and a trickle of blood began to ooze from his nose. At this time, the opponent gathered courage and continued the attack. The girl and boy watched it from afar. Our hero has already begun to think that it is time to intervene and help the mentor. Bull's pride grew. He began to think that the fight was coming to an end and watching how slowly his opponent rose. Choi Kang Ho asked to wait a moment, but the beast did not stop. Of course, it was just a distraction. After all, at the same moment when the bull ran at him, Choi Kang Ho delivered several blows that knocked the opponent off his feet. Incomprehension was red in the beast's eyes. Red Tiger let out a defiant laugh as one of the bull's horns got stuck in the wall. Taking advantage of this, he rewarded him with swags, recalling the insulting shouts he had heard from the heathen. Only then did the enraged beast realize that he had been provoked. Choi Kang Ho just played it. Turning back to the human and deciding that this would preserve his strength, the bull continued his aggressive attack. He demanded that Choi Kang Ho transform into an animal. However, this fight did not last long. Tiger knocked him out with several blows. Yujong was very shocked by what he saw. He was both alarmed and excited at the same time. He wanted to understand how it happened. But for his mentor, who looked at our main character with a smile on his bloody face, there was nothing extraordinary in this. Everyone gathered. Red Tiger said that no matter how much you observe, good practice is necessary for such success. Choi then asked Kang Yujong if he could do it. The boy remembered the bullies from his school and realized that he simply had to deal with it. The teacher was satisfied with the answer. He began to explain using the example of Hwang Chonmei's fight. The tiger recalled how she first did the triangle exercise. Then it was necessary to clamp the opponent's hands and neck to immobilize him and make him lose consciousness. Thus, it is an effective method that gives hope for reincarnation. And the mentor began to show the corresponding delights on Kang Yujong. The boy appreciated this technique and, unable to withstand the force of the strong pressure, fainted. The girl shook her head unhappily, and 20 minutes later, Yujong practiced this technique on his mentor. Red Tiger, clearing his throat after the reception, reminded of the importance of a reliable grip. The main character felt confused, but clearly and diligently followed the instructions. His teacher emphasized the need to curb excessive emotions. After all, during the fight, you can't give in to emotions because it will only bring harm and the opponent will knock the guy down. He also explained the importance of mastering the grappling technique for survival in this world. In turn, Hwang Chonmei advised to always attack first. The protagonist thanked his friends for their advice and left. The tiger and the lioness walked down the street. The girl asked why he had been watching her closely lately. Has Choi Kang-ho spotted a slack somewhere? However, the boy replied that he was simply practicing new training methods for the newly selected members of the group. And the young man understood our hero well, because he also suffered from the fact that he could not turn around. But his mentors helped him not to slip into street robbers. Yujong reminded him of himself, although their personalities were completely different. Perhaps it was because of this that Choi Kang-ho wanted to help the boy, as he himself had been helped once upon a time. Here, the girl gloatingly reminded the red tiger that he used to always get nuts from her, at which the boy was somewhat offended. Meanwhile, Kang Yujong, walking through the streets of the city, pondered the changes in his life. He felt himself growing callous. He felt more and more self-confident. He was no longer as scared on the streets as before. So, when he saw that the student was insulted by a stocky guy, he immediately decided to try his hand at it. Kang Yujong clenched his hand into a fist. It was at this time that he was noticed by the Shibaigol. The latter stopped. The hooligan was not happy about the stranger's attention to him. For a moment, he let go of the schoolboy and left. Kang Yujong began to consider the best way to conduct a battle with the evil rogue, and he already told him to get away. Noticing that our hero did not move, the bully repeated his order to disappear in a rude manner. Of course, the young man wasn't going anywhere and just clenched both fists harder, coming closer. Unfortunately, the moment of the attack was spoiled by a small misfortune. The boy tripped. Then, losing his balance, he fell on the asphalt. The hooligan took advantage of this. He approached the lying opponent, and within a second, Kang Yujong received extremely strong blows. An avalanche of threats and kicks rained down on him. The opponent noticed the golden eyes of our hero. It didn't scare him. In a moment, Yujong seized the initiative. He grabbed the attacker's leg and knocked him to the ground. He got angry at such bullies, so he decided to use this opportunity to get back at himself. Grabbing his opponent and applying a chokehold, Yujong was at first very happy that it had worked. At the same time, he expressed all his hatred for such creatures. The hooligan was lying down and sneered gloatingly. Yujong triumphantly thought that he would do better than Choi Kang-ho, his mentor. Our hero was sure that he caught this beast by surprise, although in fact he made many mistakes in the technique of battle. Blinded by the momentary success, he believed that the mission would be a success, even though it was his first attempt. Kang Yujong began to think about how much longer he would have to hold the opponent like this, but these thoughts did not last long. Suddenly, hundreds of small needles pierced his body. Razbi Shaka turned out to be a hedgehog. Of course, not wanting to wait for defeat, the bully turned into a predator. This was an unexpected misfortune for Yujong. The hedgehog scolded Yujong for having to ruin his entire school uniform as a result of his transformation. Choi Kang-ho and Hwang Chonmei watched this fight from the roof of the building. The girl asked the red tiger if it was safe to stay away. After all, they have not yet had time to tell Yujong how to deal with thorny animals. Kang-ho tried to justify himself to her, saying that it is better to test yourself in practice first, and only then learn the theory. Hwang Chonmei accused him of being frivolous and swore at him. Within a minute, the mentors rushed to Yujong's aid. As he ran down the steps, Choi Kung-ho continued to make excuses that he didn't think the hedgehogs would actually appear. So, how to act in this situation, our hero did not yet know and already received a good kick from an angry opponent. Confused, the young man tried to think of at least some effective technique, but nothing came to mind. The hedgehog encouraged the boy to continue the fight, inquiring about Yu-jong's essence. He learned that he could not reincarnate. It meant nothing to the bully. He demanded immediate payment for his damaged school uniform. With strong fists, the hedgehog pounced on the young man. Our hero received a powerful blow to the head. The enemy attacked sparingly. It was noticeable that he was amused by a fight with a weak opponent. Yu-jong began to lose faith in the successful completion of the duel. On the other hand, the boy understood that a month of training does not guarantee instant success. The boy began to recall the mentor's words about how to confuse the opponent by setting a trap for him. Kang no longer felt fear like he had before. He concentrated and tried to remember his teacher's instructions. Choi Kung-ho once said that in any case, action must be taken immediately. Each animal opponent has its own strengths and weaknesses. It is according to this principle that you need to set an enemy trap. Therefore, Yu-jong began to think about how to confuse the enemy. The boy began to look closely at his opponent. Then he took off his shoes and pulled them over his hands. The friends had already come to help, but the tiger stopped the lioness, noticing that Yu-jong was up to something. The mentor decided to give him a chance and prove himself. The girl was surprised by an unexpected stop. Meanwhile, Kang Yu-jong remembered that the hedgehog's weak point was his front because it was soft. But the most important thing is that during reincarnation, the animal, on the contrary, loses its stamina. So, to gain an advantage, you definitely need to hit the stomach or solar plexus hard. The hedgehog looked at the prank with the shoes with interest because he was expecting a reincarnation. However, this did not happen. He cursed again and continued his attack, threatening Kang Yu-jong that he would not be able to hold his position for long. At first, our hero missed several blows to the jaw, but confidently stood on his feet. Then he noticed that the inside of the opponent's body had no muscles. He was able to block the hedgehog. Yu-jong finally found the beast's weak spot. With a distracting gesture, he threw a shoe at the enemy and hit it with his fist as hard as he could. Under the force of the blow, the hedgehog bent in half and was thrown several meters to the side. The force of the blow was such that the predator fell to the ground unconscious and turned back into a human. Without losing the advantage and until the opponent reincarnated again, our hero struck another blow. Kang Yu-jong was overjoyed at what he saw. He was in high spirits. Surprise froze on the girl's face. A terribly frightened student watched the battle from around the corner of the building. He didn't know what to expect from his defender. It was hard for Yu-jong to realize his victory. He decided to return to the beginning of the fight. The boy repeated the actions of his fallen opponent and took the money he had stolen from the hooligan. Our hero returned them to the surprised schoolboy, who watched his actions from afar. Choi Kung-ho was appalled by his charge's behavior, calling Yu-jong a fool. It was then that the student decided to give part of the returned funds to his savior. He was grateful for the rescue. He thought our hero was cool. It was Yu-jong's turn to wonder at the unusual behavior of the rescued. However, the student insisted on taking the money so that he could heal the wounds inflicted during the battle with the hedgehog. Kang Yu-jong stood stunned and held several folded 10,000 bills in his hand. After such thanks, the protagonist felt that he was finally able to fight criminals. Tiger was proud of his first student. However, he did not share his desire to return the money. Choi Kang-ho passionately discussed with the lioness the unexpected victory, which was very spectacular. Hwang Chonmei did not fully share his emotions and hinted that the boy should buy new clothes. Then she looked into the face of the winner and saw that he was completely washed with tears. It was 59 days before he returned to school, and he already had his first victory in a fight. Returning to themselves, the trio went up to the roof. Kang Yu-jong screamed in pain, and Chonmei tried to restrain him from getting too emotional. The girl treated our hero's wounds, which he received from the hedgehog. The boy clenched his teeth, overcoming the pain and discomfort. Choi Kang-ho cheerfully recalled the moment of the fight, when the bully turned into a beast and inflicted numerous cuts on the young man. Yu-jong also remembered how careless his opponent was, which enabled him to defeat the hedgehog. Hwang Chonmei emphasized that friends should not be frivolous, because both the hedgehog and the bull are not such simple rivals. Recently, such scoundrels are difficult to recognize. Everyone began to think about the new group that appeared in the city. It was suspicious that almost no one had seen them. They could be mercenaries. Kang Ho had already started looking for information through his connections and informed her that the girl would have to figure it all out. It was at this moment that the lionesses called. She picked up the phone and promised someone to come right away. Saying goodbye, she left the house. Kang Yujong asked Tiger where the girl went, to which he replied that he didn't know, but she would definitely solve the dangerous situation. Choi Kang-ho went on to explain that local authorities often make deals with street gangs like his to maintain order in the city. In fact, they work as mercenaries. It is a known fact that in order to occupy as many areas of Jeonju as possible, gangs invade foreign territory and commit crimes there. It is because of these events that the Red Tiger Group needs new recruits like Kang Yu-jong. Choi Kang-ho then gave the student his notebook, explaining that he didn't want to show it to our hero before. Holding the notebook in his hands, the boy began to turn page after page and read the notes next to the pictures. The notebook noted the weaknesses of the animals and advice on creating traps. Yu-jong was delighted. The tiger explained that he was glad of his late reincarnation because it allowed him to study all the strengths and weaknesses of his opponents and prepare for battle instead of relying only on the strength of the beast. You need to attack based on your knowledge and be careful enough to be sure to have victory in your pocket. Impressed, Kang Yu-jong was overjoyed at the information and thanked the mentor, to which he only laughed. Our hero continued to read the notebook, becoming more and more convinced of how difficult it was for Choi Kang-ho to acquire this knowledge. The boy turned to the tiger with a question, the answer to which he had been interested for a long time. Yu-jong showed interest in how his mentor managed to turn around after so many years. Choi laughed merrily and said that he had also been waiting for this question for a long time, but the student did not dare. There was nothing special in the story. Kang Ho revealed that the reincarnation happened when he was surrounded by 12 rivals. He already had many injuries, and the situation seemed hopeless. In addition, he was attacked by the fiercest of his enemies, so the tiger did not particularly want to lose to them. Surprised, Kang Yu-jong asked how the mentor managed to defeat so many opponents. Kang Ho told the truth about how he fell to his knees and how his mind was flooded with emotions of anger, rage, and humiliation. After some time, he came to his senses and noticed that he had already turned into a bloody beast, and his opponents were lying on the ground. Choi Kang-ho isn't sure if it was out of fear or anger. With this, he concluded his story about that day. Shocked by what he heard, our hero asked in surprise whether all 12 enemies had been defeated. The teacher said that sometimes even adults can't reincarnate. This problem often arises as a result of childhood injuries, and wondered if Yu-jong belongs to such people. The young man admitted that he lost his mother at the age of 7, and since then he has not been able to reincarnate. He does not know the reason for this, and there are no memories left at all. Choi Kang-ho asked how his mother died. On the day of the burial, some incident happened, but he does not remember anything at all. Trying to find out the truth, he repeatedly asked his father, but he avoided talking about it. However, recently, some memories of his mother began to return to him in fragments. That it could mean? Choi Kang-ho started talking about similar problems with his memories when he suddenly got a call. It was Hwang Chonmei. As the conversation progressed, Tiger's face began to show rage and hatred. After the conversation, he quickly gathered himself and ran out, instructing Yu-jong to train well in his absence. Left alone, Yu-jong wondered what kind of childhood trauma his mentor was hiding. He wanted to listen to the story to the end, but no matter what, the boy was worried about whether he could also start reincarnating. The young man decided that while he was in Jeonju, he would work very hard. Kang Yu-jong walked steadily through the streets of the city. Confidence settled in his heart. From now on, he trained to exhaustion with various sports equipment, building muscles. During lunch, our hero hastily scooped a double portion of rice for both cheeks. Even during household affairs, he more than once plunged into thoughts about his situation. Every night, the pain of overstretched muscles kept Yu-jong from sleeping soundly. Beside him, the mentor slept soundly. Our hero carefully studied the information that Choi Kang-ho wrote down in his notebook. The boy was perfecting his fighting technique in a pair with Hwang Chonmei. Of course, the lioness always had an advantage. While polishing the acquired skills, Yu-jong met on the streets of the city with his familiar abusers. 30 days before his departure, the young man competed with the goat, and 2 weeks later, he tested his strength in a battle with the wolf. A week before the end of his stay in Jeonju, our hero came face to face with Ram. These fights brought good results. His skills became better. Yujong's progress was observed by the mentors from the roof of the building, who concluded that he was really good at everything. Red Tiger and Lioness asked if he was planning to reincarnate today. The young man was only embarrassed by such a question. Then the events unfold in the School of Predators. The second semester has begun. The strongest student was excluded, so a new rating has not yet been compiled. All around the school, Yujong saw fights between predators, which he tried to avoid. The boy, having passed one of these, breathed a sigh of relief. The young man clearly understood that there are no safe places. It was the first day after Kang Yujong returned to Predator High School. The boy resolutely climbed the stairs. During his lunch break, Wu Zhonghua sat at a separate table, trying not to pay attention to the people around him. For some time, he became a witness of local violence. A few students were standing in the crowd and talking among themselves. Suddenly, one of the students received a strong punch from a high school student who was walking through the crowd. The stunned boy wanted to know from whom and for what he received such a kick. Although he was also a freshman, he was part of Seo Du Chel's pack. Since the victim was of lower rank, he had to apologize to his superior. At the moment, this group was the strongest in the school, so no one wanted to come into contact with its members again. Kang Yujong calmly observed the incident. Our hero concluded that despite the exclusion of the leader of the pack, her influence was still significant. In a moment, the representatives of the most united pack, due to the prevailing competition, started a fight with the strongest. Pupils from other groups joined them. Chaos reigned in the school canteen. School children turned into beasts. The lowest-ranking freshmen were forced to clean up the mess after the fight. A student with a higher rank began to mock them. Ma Quan called Wu Zhonghua to clean the glass, to which the latter asked with surprise what kind of glass it was. Then Quan pointed him toward the wall and, throwing a stone at the window frame, let out a loud laugh. After that, he left the premises, ordering Zhonghua to come after cleaning up. The schoolboy could not deny anything and was forced to obey. He removed the shards of glass. Zhonghua was inferior and disrespected, so he was humiliated and beaten at every opportunity. This attitude exhausted and depressed the boy every day. Sadness settled in his eyes. At this time, he received another letter from Yujong and assumed that his friend might be transferring to another school, but still hoped that he was doing well. Just as the wolf was reading the letter, John Sol-hwa came and told him that Jung Sung-hwa was waiting for him around the corner of the building. The student respectfully bowed and thanked. He pondered what exactly he would be told to do. Outside the first-class building, Wu Zhonghua met Park Da-sol. Both were summoned by Jung Sung-hwa, which seemed strange. Suddenly, from the bushes growing on both sides of the sidewalk, Kang Yujong fell onto the asphalt. The stunned boys shouted his name. Our hero tried to make a spectacular appearance, but his plan failed. The students came closer to him. They were amazed by his daring appearance and changing body shapes. Noticing their reactions, Yujong shyly said that he had gotten better looking. He then asked how his classmates felt during his absence. The guy admitted that he was the one who called them to the meeting. Our hero also reminded Wu Zhonghua that he had promised to return in his letters when he became stronger. Da-sol was angry that he had missed his dream because of this meeting and decided to teach the young man a lesson. The leopard swung to strike, but Yujong jumped back to a safe distance. This act enraged the attacker. Zhonghua watched the tense situation in surprise. Park Da-sol continued to advance and lunged at the boy. However, unexpectedly for everyone, he received a strong rebuff. The same weak boy who didn't raise his head before now knocked Leopard to the ground with one punch. Kang Yujong told the half-conscious Da-sol that the old days are in the past and he will no longer run away like he used to. The spectacular battle stunned the wolf. He could not believe his eyes. On the other hand, Park Da-sol was not going to give up so easily. It was unbearable for him to endure such humiliation from a student of the lowest rank. He turned into a beast and charged. Zhonghua also transformed into a wolf and was ready to intervene, but Yujong stopped him. Our hero wanted to deal with Leopard himself and thus prepared to challenge the leader of the first group. Before these events, our hero decided to meet with some of his classmates. John Sol Hua and Jo Yong Hua approached him. They were surprisingly surprised to see him because they thought that the young man had transferred from this school. In addition, the changes in the appearance of the once absolute weakling Yuzhong also caught their eyes. The girls commented that Kang Yuzhong's body shape has a more attractive appearance. Then our hero announced that he had important news, but would tell about it later. At first, the boy said he wanted to deal with Park Dussel on his own, luring him behind the school building. But this caused only an explosion of laughter from the students. They thought Yuzhong's words were complete nonsense. However, the guy himself was serious and offered the girls to accept his proposal. The young man asked the girls to join Wu Zhonghua's pack if Park Dussel was successfully resolved, as his plan to conquer Kang Yuzhong's first group needed the help of these students. The classmates thought this idea was ridiculous, so they laughed out loud again. After calming down, Jo Yonghua decided to continue, but John Solhua remained standing still. She decided to agree to help just to see how it would all play out. So afterwards, the girl stood at a distance and watched Kang Yuzhong deal with Park Dussel, even as he turned into a beast. It became clear that these were not just empty words of a weakling. The female students watched the fight with delight. Meanwhile, our main character turned around to run away from Leopard. The opponent smiled mischievously and decided that everything was happening as it had been in the past. Dussel hastened to catch up with the brat and quickly jumped forward. And that was exactly what Yuzhong was counting on. Suddenly, the beast's foot fell into a hole in the school asphalt with a crash. It came as a complete surprise to Leopard. After stopping, Kang Yuzhong said that he was the one who had prepared the trap that the opponent had fallen into. The sharp wooden spikes stung the leg, which had grown in size after the transformation. Then, our main character took out a bat hidden in the bushes and hit the opponent well. He recalled all the abuse Dussel had done to him in the past. At first, all this only caused Leopard's irritation and anger. He tried to grab the bat from Yuzhong's hands. But then, a strange reaction came over him. Park Dussel stopped. He tried to catch the faint aroma with his nose. The protagonist admitted that he had previously treated the weapon with catnip. He was heartened by Dussel's response to this. Yuzhong began to hit his opponent harder. Leopard tried to fight back and cursed his classmate, calling him a coward. In a moment, Dussel realized that he would not be able to get out of the trap. However, he was sure that even in human form he would be able to win, because he still had enough strength. So while the opponent continued to hit, the leopard transformed back into a human and pulled out his leg. Without interfering, Wu Zhonghua, John Solhua, and Jo Yonghua continued to watch the fight in surprise. At this time, our main character delivered such a strong blow that he knocked the opponent to the ground. After that, Leopard did not get up. Kang Yuzhong let out a sigh of relief as he announced that he was able to eat the carnivore. Zhonghua ran up to his friend. He was shocked, happy, and confused at the same time. The boy tried to understand how, even without transforming, his friend was able to win. The protagonist smiled awkwardly and promised to tell everything under calmer circumstances. Girls who were watching the fight from afar approached the boys. They honestly admitted that they did not believe in his victory. Now the offer to join Wu Zhonghua's group seemed attractive to them. Not knowing anything about this, the wolf was surprised. Yuzhong explained to his friend that he offered the girls to join their group if he defeated Leopard himself. But here a new task arose. How best to name this group because the girls were already part of another group? Wolf then suggested changing the name of their pack after Kang Yuzhong. This did not suit her classmates. Our main character was stunned by such a proposal and also did not want to agree. The girls take back their words about joining the group because they cannot consider Yuzhong as the leader. The young man tried to stop them, but they went away. The boy did not want to become a leader. Zhonghua persuaded him because he considered his friend as his equal. The wolf said that Yuzhong, unlike him, is more charismatic and recently much stronger, so he will be able to attract new people. Zhonghua himself will be the leader's right hand. After much persuasion, our hero agreed to the changes. The friends shook hands and decided to start carrying again. Everything that happened under the walls of the building was watched by one of the students from the window. The boys did not notice him and continued their conversation. He noticed a young man who had recently appeared at school and it interested him. A fight had just ended in the room. One by one, Zhonghua and Kang Yuzhong invited students from the school to join their group. Unfortunately, no one wanted to be under the leadership of the latter. After the conversation, everyone hurriedly turned and left. Mass rejections upset our hero. He was in despair. The guy understood the reason. However, Yuzhong decided that he should not give up and use Plan B. The wolf looked at his friend in confusion. The young man took out his notebook and began to read it carefully. Zhonghua watched in silence and interest. At this time, a student ran into the classroom. He looked for Zhong Sunghua, but she was nowhere to be found. A classmate assumed that she was in her office. After meeting her, the student asked Sunghua if she remembered that weak freshman who couldn't transform. She remembered Tiger. It turned out that Yuzhong did not drop out of school and returned again. The guy also talked about Zhonghua's strange behavior and the fact that our main character is gathering his own group. The hyena was very angry at what he heard. Her order to train the wolf and intimidate him into abandoning his studies was not carried out. In the end, Zhong Sunghua ordered Zhou Sangho to call and tell him to crush our friends. If he does not succeed, then it is necessary to make sure that no one follows them. Hyena herself will follow everything in the evening. Our heroes discussed the plan of further actions. Park de-Sol was out of the game because he was too embarrassed to admit what happened. He decided to lie down. Kang Yuzhong shared with a friend his observation that Zhou Sangho had been absent from school for some time and thus knew nothing of their plans. The boy also noted that today, when there is no leader, is the best time to take control of the first class. Not fully understanding his friend's words, Wolf asked in surprise if Yuzhong really wanted to seize power over the first class today. Our hero confirmed his opinion, adding that although there are certain fears, the implementation of the plan is possible. Surprised, Zhonghua still didn't understand how this could be implemented in one day, but decided to trust his friend. Kang Yuzhong showed him a bag with a pile of notebooks. Then the wolf simply asked about the future plan. Our hero took out one of the notebooks and showed detailed drawings. He was going to crush groups of opponents from behind. The first victim was to be Ma Quan, as he is in charge of the first group. Yuzhong was going to deal with him in front of everyone, on his own. He warned the wolf that he should not interfere or worry about him, but only watch. When the young man approached the bully, he quickly returned to his old habits and began to humiliate the boy. So, coming face to face with Ma Quan, our hero tried to prepare himself for battle, recalling his battles in Jeonju. At that moment, the horse grabbed him by the throat. For a moment, Yuzhong was overcome with rage as he struggled to break free from the chokehold. A handful of stunned classmates watched this scene with bated breath. But Yuzhong managed to hit the attacker between the legs. At that moment, Ma Quan's fingers involuntarily spread, and he let go of his victim. Feeling excruciating pain, the horse fell to his knees, sending curses and insults towards his opponent. Realizing that it is impossible to delay, our hero knows how to hit his opponent on the head with a stick. Ma Quan fell to the floor exhausted from such an attack. The students present opened their mouths in great surprise. They still couldn't believe what was happening before their eyes. With his arms tightly folded, Zhonghua stood quite calm and focused. After recovering from their shock and watching Ma Quan fall defeated, the crowd started chanting that he was a loser. Our hero stooped to finish the job. He had to show strength and was going to use only one right. Instead, Yuzhong suggested that Ma Quan fight with only his left hand. The fight continued. The angry hooligan lashed out at his opponent with abuse. He was preparing to take revenge with insolence, but, making blow after blow, he was repulsed and lost. The horse swung his fist. Yuzhong dodged the blow. Then the legs went into action, but again with a miss. Burning with rage, Ma Quan swung his leg with unheard of force. Our hero also stopped this powerful attack. Kang Yuzhong wrapped a small stick around his leg in advance. Such an action simultaneously protected him from injury and caused more damage to the opponent. The horse's face contorted in unexpected pain. At that moment, he missed a hard blow to the cheek. The fight was in full swing. Our hero frantically attacked the opponent, who gave less and less resistance. Convinced that the fight was moving in the right direction, the young man intensified his attack. Repelling all the enemy's attempts, the boy prevented him from taking the initiative. Ma Quan was angry with the abuser for tricking him before the duel began. A few successful combinations and tricks put an end to the fight, and our hero put his opponent on the floor again. The students were shocked. Kang Yu-jong managed to kick Ma Quan. No one expected this. Zhonghua looked pleased. A faint smile appeared on the face of our main character. After the physical assault, the boy began to exert psychological pressure. He humiliated his opponent, saying that his shots did not mean anything to him. A golden light lit up in his eyes. These words made Ma Quan quite angry. With hatred for his opponent, he continued to listen. Kang Yu-jong came up with a new nickname for a classmate, the Pusher. Our hero reminded that in battle, you should not show your opponent your weak points. Calling the defeated a foal, the boy thus declared Ma Quan a fearful animal. The hooligan froze in surprise. He felt ashamed for losing to the once weak loser. Some of the students present watching the fight looked at Quan with disdain, and Yu-jong's insults were the last straw. The boy turned into a horse and charged. Our hero missed a sharp blow and fell. He tried to calm himself down and force himself not to panic. So, in order to defeat a transformed enemy, it was necessary to know the enemy's weaknesses well. The protagonist remembered that this was exactly what the red tiger had taught him. One day, Choi Kang-ho asked if Yu-jong knew the value of each animal's energy expenditure, to which the boy uncertainly replied that he knew something. Not satisfied with this result, the mentor unfolded his notebook. Kang-ho pointed to a table that described this information for each animal species. After all, unlike people, animals have considerable endurance. At the same time, everyone has their own limit. When dealing with hardier species such as a dog, bull, or horse, the first step is to find out their weaknesses. Then, during the offensive, you should always remember a few things. First, to direct the strength of the opponent against himself. Second, use the items and the place of the fight. The next stage is to attack only vital organs, since the enemy's resistance increases after reincarnation. Therefore, during the attack, you must definitely aim clearly and accurately at the selected points. All of these were used by Yu-jong in the fight. Knowledge helped our hero win a spectacular victory. An unconscious Ma Quan lay on the floor, knocked out. He lost this battle, which took place in front of the students of the first group. Breathing heavily, our hero was relieved to realize that another fight had ended successfully. Surprised and horrified, the crowd watched Kang Yu-jong, and he, taking a breath, headed for the exit from the room. On the way, he pulled out the phone from the loser's pocket and called Zhonghua with him. The wolf, with an unmoved face, joined the boy. They were escorted by the stunned looks of their classmates, digesting what they had just seen. Going down the stairs, Zhonghua demanded an explanation from his friend, to which he only smiled awkwardly. Kang Yu-jong explained that one should not relax, because this moment is the beginning of what is planned. The next step was long considered by our hero. The guy texted from Ma Quan's phone. Josue was surprised to hear that his friend had been beaten by Yu-jong, as he thought he had been counted out. Attendance was scheduled on the lot behind the first-year building. A classmate agreed to come. So Josue was to be the next victim. Thus began the hunting of animals. The guy, not suspecting anything, came to the place. He was looking for a friend, and at this time, our main character was already following him from an ambush. The task before Yu-jong was not easy. The angry wild boar had an extraordinary stubbornness. The beast will fight until it collapses from exhaustion or until the enemy disappears from sight. In any case, he will not calm down. Josue was nicknamed the money-eating wild boar. He was the leader of his pack until he came under the influence of Jo Sang-ho. The boy was a first-class man, one of the best. He rarely went berserk, knew how to control his emotions, and excelled in protracted battles. Dasol and Quan were on a completely different level, so Yu-jong knew to be careful. While Josue was standing and checking messages on his phone, our hero suddenly jumped out of his hiding place. Kang Yu-jong decided to first deprive the opponent of one arm. Jumping out of the bushes, he hit the enemy with a stick. Hearing some strange noises, Josue turned around, and just at that moment, something heavy landed on his shoulder. A dull pain shot through his arm, and although it caught him by surprise, the boy struck back with all his might at his assailant, knocking him several meters away. Josue was very surprised by the appearance of our hero. He was trying to find out what was going on and where Ma Quan was now. Kang noticed his opponent's confusion. Thoughts in the student's head changed with incredible speed. And what happened just now had no explanation at all. Josue was puzzled, and he was especially annoyed by the silence of his opponent. He found a way to solve this situation. The boy charged to make Yujong talk, but our hero deftly dodged the blow. Josue continued to attack while his opponent stayed on his feet and landed counterkicks. Yujong's next move was to use a chokehold, so he clamped down on his enemy's head and hung over him with all his body weight. This immobilized the enemy for a while and surprised him even more. But Josue got out of this rapture. He pressed on the wound on Yujong's left arm and pushed him away. The bandages began to slip and the mark of a hoof began to show. Josue was amazed. He asked who taught Yujong such tricks, but our hero continued to play in silence. This bothered Josue for a reason. After examining the boy's wound, he assumed that his friend Quan could have done it. Since Yujong was standing there in silence, this made the boy very angry and he started hitting even harder. Our hero noticed this, noting to himself that the opponent had warmed up enough to transform. The battle continued. Yujong did not give in to the opponent, striking back with equally strong blows. Our hero noted that this opponent is significantly different from the previous ones, and in terms of strength and stubbornness, he is clearly a rank higher than them. However, his kicks did not go unnoticed. They caused pain in the enemy, and the expression on his face testified to the anger that possessed him. Eventually, Josue got tired of these arguments, so the young man turned on Bo, which was exactly what Yujong was trying to achieve. He was about to get down to business, but he couldn't understand why the boar was running back and forth so quickly. The blow of the beast was so powerful that the boy was thrown several meters up. The attacker's red eyes confirmed the guesses that Josue was in berserker mode. The boar could not control his rage. Meanwhile, Kim Jong-ryong rushed into the gym. There were few people in the middle. He was looking for Jo Sang-ho but ran into one of the pack members who didn't want to let him see the leader. Vozak actually trained next to the punching bag. Displeased, he stopped the exercise. The kangaroo met the boy quite gloomily, threatening that he would have no more than 5 seconds to tell the story. Kim Jong-ryong gave the news succinctly. Meanwhile, Woo Jong-hwa was standing near the duel and pondering. Yujong's confidence somewhat confused him and caused him to doubt the realization of the intention. However, it was too late to worry, all bets were off. There is only one thing left, to implement the plan. So the wolf mentally wished good luck to his friend, who at that moment was running away from the angry animal. Berserker mode was special. The wild boar in it was superior to all other animals. But there was also a drawback. He got tired 4 times faster. Therefore, in this duel, there were only 2 options for the development of events. Either the powerless beast would fall, or Yujong would fall. The boy's eyes burned with golden fire. He decided to do anything to win this battle. Yujong was running away from the pursuer. The opponent was quickly closing the distance between them. Our main character understood that one mistake could cost him his life because the angry boar was ready to tear the brat. He quickly rose from the ground and rushed forward. The angry eyes of the animal tried to follow the trajectory of his movement. Yujong disappeared behind the walls of the building. The boar, snorting, immediately went after his opponent. Finally, the boy reached the pre-prepared trap, but it was not necessary to use it immediately. After all, at that moment, the boy had to quickly dodge the strong fist of the attacker. Yujong fell. The landing was successful. He ended up near his hiding place. Feeling for the umbrella with his hand, he took it out and hurriedly opened it. Kang used his knowledge that wild boars have poor eyesight and rely mostly on their sense of smell to hunt. For a moment, the boar stopped. Squinting, the attacker tried to focus on his victim, but it didn't work out well for him. Behind the umbrella, Yujong prepared a trap, a doll in his own likeness to distract attention. While Boar was trying to find his way, our hero forcefully threw his mannequin to the side. The plan worked. Josue rushed to where the bait had fallen and started punching hard. When the boar crushed the doll, he smeared himself in a sticky and viscous substance. And then Yujong started throwing Choi Kang Ho soothing oil, mixed with flour, into him. The rival's indignation knew no bounds. Blinded by the rising smoke, he clenched his fists even tighter, preparing to attack. The next stage of the idea was a good dose of hot chili. With a sharp movement, Yujong hurled a handful of pepper straight into Boar's face. The opponent, full of anger, unexpectedly received a portion of the undead. Irritated, he rushed at his opponent with curses. The speed and fury of the wild boar still remained incredible. Our hero took a metal hammer to make a chop out of his opponent. However, he himself still needed to keep his distance so as not to fall victim to his trap. Kang Yu-jong told himself to hold on and not worry. He had no right to miss even one blow from the enemy. Bucking up, Kaban was preparing to attack, and so our main character delivered his precise, strong blow. The opponent lay unconscious on the asphalt. Yu-jong sighed with great relief. Josue has now joined Park de-Sol and Makwan. Unfortunately, it was much more difficult than the boy had imagined, but his plan of individual defeat was working. While needing the injury, the young man announced that the next on his list should be Park Yo-han, and Jong-hwa will instead have to deal with Jo Sang-ho's runners, who were leisurely heading towards him. The leader looked surprised at Vovka, who greeted him ironically. The latter explained that he would hold them back while Kang Yu-jong took the lead. Jo Sang-ho thought the words he heard were nonsense. He simply couldn't believe that the weakling became the leader of the pack. And at this time, our protagonist confidently walked up the steps to the audience to get even with the fourth offender. So, Wolf informed the students that he was recently a member of Kang Yu-jong's pack. And while the leader conquers the first class, he, Jong-hwa, as his right-hand man, will try to control this crowd. Jo Sang-ho said that he did not understand a word, but he was glad that the victim came to him on her own. Yerba was transformed under his leadership. This was not an easy task for Wolf, considering their dislike for Jong-hwa. Before the battle, Yu-jong had warned his friend not to let the six closest to the leader pass under any circumstances until the fifth lesson was in progress. To the questioning look of the wolf, our main character replied that these six have become much stronger than they were last semester. The changes were significant, so it was necessary to unite with the first class to fight them. Kang Yu-jong promised to make an effort to have the vast majority of the students join his pack by the end of the fifth lesson. Since the students often skip classes, Jong-hwa decided that it would be better for him to distract Josue and Park Yo-han. Our main character agreed with the good idea, but he was afraid that no one would want to join their pack, so there was no other way. Yu-jong chose to single-handedly defeat all four of the strongest boys in the class. Then the other students themselves will decide to join him. Unfortunately, our hero had a premonition that Jo Sang-ho would show up sooner than he thought. This would make it much more difficult to work and create your own flock. Yu-jong decided to stick with the planned plan. The boy's fears came true. Jong-hwa saw this with his own eyes when he came to distract and detain the students. The boy did not understand why all six had become so strong in such a short time. After all, before he could deal with them by himself, but now, even with Yu-jong's help, they would have a hard time. Jong-hwa just arrived for the beating. Everyone rushed at him at once. The wolf calculated that half an hour remained until the fifth lesson. Kang Yu-jong opened the door and entered the classroom. The students reacted with surprise to his appearance. Park Yo-han was sleeping at his desk. Our hero imperceptibly crept up to him. Then, after removing several tables and chairs, he wrapped the rope around the sleeping man's legs. The student woke up from the noise and was surprised to see Yu-jong. He didn't have time to come to his senses when he received a hard slap with his fist. Disgust and anger took over Johan. He was about to get up, but he flew down with the chair. Our protagonist continued to strike. Classmates, some with delight, others with surprise, watched the spectacle. The hooligan was lying on the floor and screaming to be untied. He couldn't stand up, but he reached for Yu-jong's leg and grabbed it. The young man did not have time to free himself, so in a few seconds, he fell down, hitting his back painfully. Our hero was exhausted from the previous battle with Kaban, so he barely had the strength to move. Yu-jong was well aware that if his opponent grabbed him, it would have very negative consequences for him. Our main character slammed his sneaker in the opponent's face with all his might. Instead, he was repulsed. Johan grabbed his injured leg. Yu-jong sat back exhausted. He was completely exhausted. Previous fights cost him too much. Our main character forced himself not to be nervous. At this moment, his opponent had already turned into a rhino. Meanwhile, Jong-hwa's fight with Jo Sang-ho's gang was in full swing. Wolf noted remarkable consistency, particularly in the actions of two attackers, Kang Soo-han and Kim Hae-jon. These two delivered their precise blows with particular ferocity. It was noticeable that they have become professionals in their field. Zhonghua fought back with dignity. Suddenly, his attention was diverted by Kangaroo. Leaping several meters up, Sangho delivered a massive blow. The slap was so strong that the wolf could barely stay on his feet, and the opponent continued to attack again and again. Zhonghua defended with all his might. But within 15 minutes, the fight was over. The knuckle in Kangaroo's hands had done its job. The wolf lay unconscious. The leader asked one of his followers if he had called Josui and Johan, to which he replied that the students were not picking up the phone. Sangho thought deeply. There was a tense atmosphere in the auditorium. A few scattered desks and chairs created a mess around. Kang Yuzhong evened out his breathing, trying to calm down and prepare himself for the attack. The boys stood facing each other. Their eyes met. Park Johan wanted to know what was happening now. A heavy, thick-skinned, rock-like mammal, the rhinoceros, stood before our main character. Two students, standing quite close and watching the duel, were reprimanded. Yuzhong grabbed the desk. He mused that defeating an opponent in front of the disciples would make a stronger impression on them than defeating Ma Quan. After all, the rhinoceros is one of the 3 largest animals. He is a herbivore that has no predators to hunt him. He has no weaknesses, similar to an invincible tank. But when animals fight among themselves, this is not a sight for the faint of heart. Yuzhong prepared to attack. Suddenly, he noticed a piece of the bag and a red powder scattered on his palm. The boy realized that while he was running with the boar, the bag of chili peppers broke. But while he was going through all this in his head, distracted from the fight, the opponent's fist was already flying towards his head. There was no way to evade. Our main character was thrown sharply against the wall. The blow was so powerful that it elicited sympathy from several student observers. Then came a wave of great surprise. Everyone's mouths fell open when they saw how the young man calmly got up after the miss. The rhino's face froze in a grimace of surprise. He seems to have stopped understanding reality for a moment. However, the blow was not so strong for Yuzhong because the potato grandfather hit him much more powerfully. Exchanging threats, the boys attacked. Johan noted that it was just a warm-up. Next, it's time for weapons and tricks. Yuzhong decided to test how the rhino's super-sensitive hearing would pick up the ultrasonic noise by turning it on his phone. The acoustic vibrations affected everyone present. High frequencies instantly gave the students a headache. The rhinoceros squinted from the unpleasant sensation. Kang Yuzhong continued to carry out his plan. He took out 2 sticks and hit them hard until his hands went numb. Although the rhino was in pain, he still endured, covering the vital parts of his body. Our hero tried to make him transform into a human. The boy's hands are already tired. He was exhausted after 3 previous fights. And then the plan gave a crack. The fist of the rhinoceros was already flying into his body. The young man barely had time to dodge. Park Johan demanded to give him the phone, and our young man stubbornly refused to comply with this condition. He continued to use the sticks, which was unbearable for both of them. Yuzhong noticed that the opponent had become much slower, but the power remained the same. Our hero barely managed to swerve to the side, avoiding a blow. He realized that he could not defeat his opponent with sticks, especially since his tired hands did not obey him. Therefore, our hero decided to come closer. And although the bag of pepper was torn, there was still enough caustic powder in his pocket to disable Rhino's extremely sensitive sense of smell. The boy quickly threw away the remains of the loose mass. Having cooled down, the enemy stopped for a moment. Yuzhong's behavior completely stunned him. He cleared his throat, and at this time, he got a stick on the head again. The rhinoceros noticed that after the pepper, he had a headache and every breath was difficult. He began to lose hope of success in this battle. Johan also noticed that his opponent kept hitting his left shoulder, trying to damage the thick skin of his hand. Being angry, he didn't notice it before. He became even more angry and tried to repel the attacker. But in the end, the rhino came to the conclusion that the only right option for him now is to stop the transformation. So Park Johan turned back into a human, realizing that he would lose the fight otherwise, and cursed loudly. Surprised classmates supported this decision of Rhinoceros because they would have done the same in his place. Seizing the moment, Yuzhong immediately attacked his opponent. Knocking Johan to the floor, he grabbed him from behind, restricting his ability to move. The rhinoceros tried to break free from the grip, but our main character deftly made a lock around the boy's neck. The beast broke out of the trap and resisted, but as a result of the transformation, there was no strength left. And Kang Yujong clenched his hands even tighter. After holding on like this for some time, our hero let go of his opponent, who fell unconscious on the floor. The students held their breath. They watched this epic struggle, and its ending shocked them. Also, the classmates saw how much Kang Yujong had changed, but they did not even imagine such a development. The boy stood in front of the shocked students and announced that he and Wu Zhonghua had passed the first grade today. But with these words, Zhou Sangho entered the classroom. He confidently walked in front of his classmates. Then he approached our main character and pathetically asked what they had absorbed there, as if after exclaiming, "Ta-damn!" Silence reigned in the classroom. A crowd of surprised students anxiously awaited the solution. Yuzhong hoped he would have more time before Sangho arrived. He assumed that someone else had intervened in the fight with Wu Zhonghua because his friend would not have given up so quickly. Our hero assessed the situation. There were 5 people in front of him, so judging by this, the wolf took one opponent out of the game. Joe noticed Park Johan passed out on the floor. The boy asked if our main character had really dealt with him. Clenching his fist tighter, Yuzhong named 3 more names that lost to the young man in duels: Park Dasol, Makwan, and Josue. Of course, this is hard to believe, but if there is any doubt about his words, then Sangho can ask anyone else. Our main character looked around. All directions for departure were blocked by supporters of the leader. Kangaroo, kneading his fingers, repeated the students' names out loud. Then he asked if Wu Zhonghua was really in Kang Yuzhong's pack and what the 2 of them were up to. Our young man tried to concentrate. He informed the bully that he had absorbed the first class today. Yuzhong openly faced his opponent and declared that he wanted to arrange a match for the place of the leader. The words that rang out for a while caused terrible surprise in the surrounding students. Zhou Sangho clarified whether it is about the place of the leader. Then he reminded our hero that he had no support because he was alone against the whole pack. Kang Yuzhong agreed and confirmed his intention. Such a loud statement caused a fit of laughter from the hooligans. They didn't take the boy's words seriously. The crowd remarked that even if the young man had learned to transform, it would not help him defeat the pack in any way. However, our hero assured that he will be able to clear their spades even without this. The mention of the transformation confused Sangho. The words heard made the leader think about how the boy, without reincarnating, was able to defeat 4 strong students. The reaction of all the classmates around showed that everything really happened without reversal. The leader thought that maybe Yuzhong started behaving like that because he had completely lost his temper. So Sangho was in no hurry to fight this madman personally. He sent 2 of his 6s. He hoped to close this incident quickly. Our hero had neither strength nor weapons nor traps prepared in advance. He thought about how exactly he should fight his opponents. He was not going to appear so simple, so I decided to take the fight and fight to the last. The blows fell one after another. Of course, exhaustion was a sign. After 4 fights in one day, the first attacks knocked the guy off his feet. Suddenly, 2 attackers stopped and approached him. Yuzhong appeared to them to be a worthless fighter. A couple of students standing aside came closer. One of them, Dong Hyun, leaned towards the boy. He jokingly asked how he managed to win before if he now looked so miserable. Zhou Sangho was angered by this behavior of the students. He asked Jang Dong-hyun why he was interfering, since the fate of the new leader was being decided at the moment. So he ordered him to go away. Instead, Lee Jong-ho had already transformed into a deer and blocked the way for the attack of the 6 leaders. The badger. Medoid continued his humorous interrogation. He recalled their conversation about Yuzhong's desire to change the leader. Later, I asked him if the offer to join the newly formed pack was still valid. Kong replied that everything was fine. And Dong-hyun cheerfully noted that he made a decision too hastily. Having received an affirmative answer, the boy called our hero a ringleader and began to deal with Sangho's henchmen. Our main character said that he can catch Jo-soo, but to do so, he needs to rest for 10 minutes. Jang Dong-hyun agreed and approached his opponents with a sly smile, transforming into a beast. At this time, Badger pushed Deer to the floor. Cursing, he growled at the students not to meddle in other people's business. Medoid ordered him to be silent. The young man then turned to Jo Sang-ho, informing him that he and his friend had joined Kang Yu-jong's group as of today. Kangaroo was stunned by this statement. The speed of events, it seemed to him, was gaining momentum. So today, Jang Dong-hyun and Lee Jung-ho will take an active part in the fight for the title of leader. Our hero tried to pull himself together as quickly as possible so as not to leave the new member of his pack alone with 4 rivals. He had doubts that he would last long alone. It was the turn of the girls who refused to join his group in the morning. They felt embarrassed by what had happened, but now changed their minds and wished to join. Of course, Yu-jong immediately agreed to accept the newcomers. Their dialogue was observed by Jo Sang-ho. He was surprised by the results of the negotiations. This caught the opponent alive. After all, at one time, Sang-ho himself repeatedly received invitations from these female students, and the girls asked for Yu-jong themselves. So, Urbis and Lysitsia immediately got down to business. A serious fight broke out in the auditorium. Beastman raged. Badger fought back Madoid. Urbis grabbed Lioness and threw her upside down on the floor. Lee Jung-ho didn't put his glasses away in time, so they were damaged, and he himself ended up on the floor. All in all, Kang Yu-jong's new pack members did a great job of giving Sang-ho's arrogant sidekicks a hard time. Our main character could hardly breathe, observing the picture around him. For a brief moment, it even occurred to him to feel sorry for his enemy's men. It was obvious that 10 minutes would be too long. The victory of his new friends would come much sooner. Jo Sang-ho was following the course of events, and he did not like them. Dong-hyun delivered the final kicks to his opponent until he passed out. So in a fairly short period of time, the leader was left alone against the new pack. When all the members of Sang-ho's gang lay defeated, he had no choice. He decided to transform. The kangaroo was angry. Completely enraged, he was going to take revenge on everyone who opposed him. But Yu-jong stopped him. The boy reminded that it was he who challenged the change of leader. Others shouldn't interfere. The final battle for the title of leader will take place face to face. Standing right in front of his opponent and looking him straight in the eyes, our hero told him to give him the first-class leader's bracelet. At the School of Predators, at the beginning of the semester, a rank duel is held. Within the training, there is a duel to replace the rank. Official rule: packs compete for absolute victory. But there is one exception to the rule. Leaders compete only one-on-one. The contender must win precisely during the duel. The furniture in the classroom was scattered. Classmates stood aside, watching their opponents. The boys stopped facing each other. Jo Sang-ho couldn't attack Yu-jong head-on. Since the leader knew about sports, he noticed changes in his body. He also knew about victories over strong students. And Kangaroo remembered that his opponent could not transform. And in contrast to this, the boy's right hand was the strong and durable Woo Jong-hwa. So Sang-ho wasn't going to take any chances. Our hero took advantage of this. Yu-jong saw that time and power were on his side, so he attacked first. The boy understood well that it was he who had to deliver the decisive blow, so he swung his stick. The kangaroo has strong thigh muscles and can jump high when striking. He has no special habits. The level of endurance is the third. After weighing everything, Yu-jong decided to immediately hit the vulnerable place, the foot. Due to its unusual shape, the animal was not comfortable to quickly turn around during the fight, but had to spin around itself. However, the young man would not be able to withstand a long match because he was exhausted during the day, and there were many obstacles in the room. The guy did what he planned, but the opponent's reaction was better, and he managed to jump away. The kangaroo punched his opponent, knocking the boy to the floor. The speed and reaction of the beast was at a new level. Our young man did not take this into account. Jo Sang-ho has raised his battle strength rank to the highest degree. Our hero gathered his last strength to get up. Kang stood up and smiled. He found the situation amusing as the boy was going up against a strong opponent with his category of unfit. This smile made the kangaroo very angry. It occurred to him that Zaznaika was simply mocking the leader. Kang Yu-jong went to attack but was hit again, knocking him down again. Our hero realized that this opponent was stronger than anyone he had to deal with in Jeonju. The speed and force of the kicks inflicted on the boy was unsurpassed. One of the blows struck the kangaroo in the stomach and he was surprised. The thing is that before the battle, Yu-jong managed to attach a protective shield to his belt, hiding it from above with a shirt. After all, The boy understood well that he simply could not withstand a blow to the stomach. Next, our hero tried to keep his distance in order to exhaust his opponent. However, his opponent exposed his tactics. Several blows were avoided, but in the end, Kangaroo's fist found our young man's face. The hard slap was so powerful that Yu Jong felt dizzy. Everything swam before my eyes. Sang-ho gritted his teeth in gloating. The boy tried to maintain a vertical position, but he could not do it. In a moment, he fell. Already on the floor, the main character desperately tried to repeat the blow to Kangaroo's foot. It's a pity, but this time it didn't work either. Sang-ho sneered at his victim's actions. He reminded the boy that he was the one who challenged him to a duel. Instead, he was fighting rather worthlessly. Having laughed enough at his opponent's pathetic attempts to outwit and defeat him, the leader delivered several more powerful blows. Kang Yu-jong was once again on the floor. A stream of red blood flowed down his broken face. Lee Jang-ho and Jang Dong-hyun stood slumped, losing their last hope of a successful duel. Kangaroo supporters smiled triumphantly. The leader sat down next to his victim and mockingly asked if he still had the strength to continue the battle. Grabbing the boy's head and giving it a good shake, Kangaroo mocked Yu-jong's methods of defeating his rivals. Wozak emphasized that the school of predators will not tolerate such tricks. Our hero fell into a pool of his own blood. Leaning on his knees, Yu-jong remembered all his victories: Grandfather Potato, Red Tiger, and Lioness. In training in Jeonju, he gave his all, so now he told himself not to give up. He had no right to lose consciousness now. Judging his opponent, Sang-ho mocked the boy's fifth attempt to attack the kangaroo's foot. Gathering his spirit, our main character began to slowly get up. He saved his last strength for this moment of fighting with the leader. It's time to surprise your opponent. After all, it became more and more difficult for the young man to control himself with each passing minute. His eyes lit up. What happened next shocked everyone present. The students were simply dumbfounded with great surprise, their mouths wide open. The same reaction was on Kangaroo's face. He could not believe what was happening before his eyes. A huge, mighty tiger rose from the almost defeated young man. Our main character has transformed. Jeonju had his first transformation as a boy during training. Choi Kang-ho was next to him then. The teacher sincerely rejoiced at the success of his student. After becoming human again, Yu-jong had a pensive look on his face. Red Tiger then asked about the feeling after a 10-year hiatus from spinning, but Yu-jong just laughed. He didn't remember anything. Looking around, the young man saw what the rascal had done. But suddenly I remembered something. Just before the transformation, there was a feeling that he would die in a little while. Our protagonist laughed nervously, but the mentor was not into jokes. After the transformation, his student was very angry and aggressive. Does Kang-ho behave the same way? He asked Yu-jong if he could turn around when needed, but the young man doubted it very much. Red Tiger was worried what would happen to the boy at school if the young man showed up there in this condition. However, it was still decided that Yu-jong had achieved some success. The main thing now is to train more to get used to your new look faster. However, the mentor was worried about another problem: the behavior of his ward after reincarnation. And then our young man came up with something. There was silence in the classroom. The transformation made a weakling into a powerful animal. The boy's safety belt fell down. Everyone present simply froze in surprise, jaws agape. Before them stood a stocky tiger. Together with the lion and the bear, he is one of the 3 big animal leaders. This is a predator, one of the few that occupies the highest rung in the food chain. Physically, the trio of animal leaders was superior to the rest of the animals. However, endurance was used twice as much. The tiger had incredible strength, high speed, and a special fighting style. Its other characteristics are also quite attractive. First of all, these are the low frequencies of the voice, which caused fatigue, fear, and paralysis in the victim. Jo Sang-ho felt all this at once. His body stopped obeying. He froze on the spot. Our hero quickly attacked. He delivered accurate and strong blows to the opponent who could not gather himself to fight back. The kangaroo, receiving powerful kicks, was more and more surprised at how strong the freshman weakling had become. The epic battle has reached its climax. Glass fell from the classroom windows. Cursing at his opponent, Kangaroo defended himself from the attack and occasionally tried to harm Yu-jong himself. Our protagonist pondered during the fight that his plan was desperate, but it seems to have worked. Even earlier, in Jeonju, the boy presented his idea to a mentor. He didn't have time to train his transformation control, so the young man invented something. Since during the transformation, he did not possess his consciousness for more than 3 seconds, he had to exhaust all his strength while still human. And it should be done so that he has them for only 10 seconds of transformation. But at this stage, another problem had to be solved. After turning, our tiger would have no power over his actions. Choi Kang-ho asked the disciple how he was going to fight in such a state. Besides, he will still be terribly tired. Yujong had no control over the transformation of his will, so surprise was the only option. This was his plan. Red Tiger didn't like this idea very much, but he supported the boy. His main task is endurance, and he had great determination. The duel continued. Although Yujong was able to transform, he was already starting to lose control. Our hero made up his mind to hold on for a while longer, but felt that it was becoming difficult for him to breathe. The kangaroo actively went on the offensive. In a short moment, our hero began to become human again. At that moment, he missed a strong blow from the leader and fell to the floor. It could mean defeat. But not this time. There are 3 ways to return after transformation: by choice, by powerlessness, or by complete unconsciousness. According to the rules of the duel, stopping the transformation means only one thing: defeat. Sang-ho stared intently at his opponent lying down. Despite everything, Kang Yu-jong got up. He looked terrible. Strong surprise and anger appeared on Kangaroo's face. The main character was like the living dead, beaten and terribly exhausted, but stubbornly stood on his feet. Jo Sang-ho stood still in fear and did not dare to approach his opponent. The leader had increased skin sensitivity as a result of the transformation, so he felt Yu-jong's strength and fighting spirit on a physical level. In addition, Kangaroo himself was very tired. He did not stop the offensive and attacks, so it cost him dearly. This is exactly what our main character was hoping for. With a devious smile, he noted that he had achieved his goal. During the transformation, once he regained control of his body, Tiger focused on defense. At this time, Joe attacked with hail, as if for the last time. Even undisguised rage did not help the kangaroo to stay in fighting shape. He gasped for air from exhaustion. So, both opponents stopped the transformation. Their chances were even. Kang Yu-jong looked at his clenched fist, which he was about to use to cause trouble to his opponent. Now the battle between them must finally determine who will become the true leader of the class. At first, Jo Sang-ho wanted to make Predator School better. He thought that after becoming a leader, students would come to him for advice and guidance even after the end of the science. By the time he was in high school, he was already stronger than many high school students. However, the boy had a classmate who troubled him. It was none other than Woo Jong-hwa. Sang-ho fought him more than 10 times, but never once was he able to defeat his enemy. In the same year, a student appeared who was called the strongest of the first graders in the history of the school. Even after becoming the leader of half of the first class, the kangaroo still lost in the battle with the wolf. In order to turn his dream into reality, Sang-ho united the first class and with its help broke the third. All that was left was to bypass Jong-hwa, and his goal was as close as the light at the end of the tunnel. Suddenly, something changed. Problems began to be created by an invisible, at first glance, worthless first grader. The leader was troubled by the question, why John Sol-hwa and Jang Dong-hyun so easily agreed to join the newly formed pack. And even this weakling turned out to be a tiger, one of the 3 majestic beasts. In addition, his classmates followed him. Sang-ho was also puzzled as to why the boy had interfered in his affairs. Maybe because he was one of the strongest predators? These thoughts swirled in Joe's head, fueling anger and aggression. The leader put on his knuckles. With insults and curses, he launched an attack against his opponent. Kang Yu-jong did not have time to dodge, and a strong blow of his fist landed on our hero's head. The boy remained upright. The enemy inflicted new kicks that rained down on his victim. Unexpectedly for himself, our main character noticed that he no longer felt these attacks. So he decided that he would not cover them in the future. Yu-jong just kept fighting. The magical struggle was gathering new momentum. Rivals teased each other in every way. At some point, the strong fist of our tiger successfully flew into the nose of the leader, who did not have time to react and missed the attack. Rage, anger and pain filled Jo Sang-ho. A thin trickle of red blood flowed from the nose. While attacking the opponent, Yujong again tried to reach his weak points, and once he succeeded. The kangaroo screamed in pain when our main character's foot landed on his foot with all its might. The leader jumped back. Our hero saw despair and anger in the eyes of his opponent, but he did not weaken his attack. Kang remembered that it was because of this malice that Sangho always won and became the leader of the first class. Our tiger remembered all the moments when he was humiliated and beaten until he lost consciousness. That was why he couldn't afford to lose now. Therefore, he desperately struck new blows. The strength of both boys was at the limit. They were breathing heavily after another attack, lying on the floor. Fainting from pain, Joe asked his opponent what kind of animal he was that could appear so unexpectedly. Kang Yujong replied that a leader must be ready to defend his title. If he is weak, he should resign. Joe Sangho's indignation knew no bounds. With hatred and anger, he grabbed the boy by the neck, trying to strangle him. Our main character felt that there was absolutely no strength left, but I decided to try one last time. Having gathered together, the two transformed into beasts. Wild snarls of opponents filled the audience. No one in the class made a single sound. The students watched the fight with bated breath. The last round of the duel has begun. Kangaroo's knuckled fist drove right into Yujong's face. Footsteps were heard. Panting, Zhonghua ran to the office. When he got to the door, he was startled by silence. The boy opened the door and entered the room, catching the surprised looks of his classmates. He made his way through the crowd to the middle of the room to get a better look at the situation among the harm-eaters. But almost immediately, Zhonghua breathed a sigh of relief when he saw his friend. The tiger turned back to the man and stood, catching his breath. Joe Sangho was lying on the floor beside him in the middle of the room, unconscious and with a broken nose. The new members of the Yujong pack shouted with joy, although they still could not understand how the tiger managed to defeat the opponent. Kangaroo supporters looked at the result of the duel with displeasure and disappointment. Neither of them said a word. Our hero smugly removed the leader's bracelet from the hand of the unconscious and now former leader. Kang Yujong was recognized as the winner of the duel. From that moment on, he held the position of first-class leader. However, the hero could no longer enjoy the congratulations because he fell to the floor from exhaustion. Kim Jong-ryong was walking past the audience. He saw with his own eyes the events that had just taken place. Tigrenya not only transformed from the first grade, but also became a leader. 6 Yongsong-hwa decided to inform Hyena about the change of power in the first class as soon as possible. On the way, he noticed how a classmate, who rarely appeared at school, was talking to someone on the phone. Jong-ryong found this quite strange. In the conversation, the young man enthusiastically assured Yu Jong-ho that he had found a new victim. If you have watched this far, I am very grateful to you. I hope you enjoyed this video because I put a lot of effort into creating it. I would be very grateful if you like this video and subscribe to the channel.